Right, hello everyone. Today I have with me Mr. Port Khazard and Noobtype. And these guys competed in some of my Awakened boss challenges, and they've been known to do a lot of other achievements around the game. So this is going to be a 2 or 3 hour podcasty discussion of all things challenges, Colosseum, new PVM things, some personal questions, and anything else that comes up. So welcome guys, and
Thank you.
yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
Fantastic. So introductions. You guys kind of know me, I guess, and I know you, but those who are watching, no clue. So this is about you guys today. I'm going to start with Noobtype. Give me a bit of a TLDR on kind of the stuff you do in RuneScape, sort of the stuff you're interested in for the most part.
I'm mainly known for Toa. Some of the starts I've done was a very early 500, 770 Invo, and I've heard there's other stuff I can't name them at the top of my head. Other than from that, I guess DTT bosses.
Mm-hmm. Done a lot of the Awakened stuff, KC wise. You have some of the, I mean, both of you guys have like some of the highest KCs in the game, I think. Probably together, the highest by far.
Yeah, I saw Port's Leviathan case. I'm like, what?
Yeah, you have I think you have the highest body, and Port is the highest Leviathan. I think that's how it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have around like 250.
Yeah, it's just a crazy amount. Like, I don't think many people have gone past maybe 20, something like that. I've got like maybe 25 Leviathan, and I was like, that's interesting, and then I'm done, but no more. But yeah, so you guys have done a crazy amount of KC for some, but these are things that like no one else is doing. No one's going that high KC. But regardless, so like, yeah, you had a big up and coming from TOA, a lot of like the theory crafting and stuff for really high invocations. I don't think anyone else has even tried to do close to the highest level TOAs that you've done. So that was like entirely your territory, I think, more or less.
Yeah, after the early tries, I wanted to push on with like, what can I do to challenge myself? And in Toa, another thing I remember is after they changed the invocations, I realized that I can push the invos to 600. And I was like, oh, this calls for another challenge.
It's quite funny because it kept going up and up, and I was like, I thought you'd be done at, I thought you guys would be done at like 600, and then it was like, what, like 650, like 700, and then what's the highest, 770?
That's the bugged invos.
Yeah, but the difficulty still counts, right? So
yeah,
it's still an extreme challenge. But yeah, awesome. So I don't know. I think most people will know you from TOA challenges at least. And Port, give me your TLDR. What are we up to?
Yo, I'm Port Khazard. I think at this point most people would just consider me a PVMer. I'm like the guy who posts 2-minute videos on Twitter every now and then. When it comes to TOA, I mean, you guys are talking about TOA. I'm like the guy who lives in Noobtype shadow because I did the 1/500 with the cheated time info, and it didn't go further than that. I still don't even have a yellow Karis, so I just can't compete with him, man. He's too good.
You've done a lot of other stuff outside of TOA though, and you're interested in not just like the PVM side of things, but also kind of the game breaky things, the really intricate things that make the game tick, all that stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's even what kind of got me into like PVM challenges at first, was like just thinking about cool things that like I learned and how I can apply them in ways that like would be interesting or like entertaining to watch. So like I think some of like the earlier things I posted were like tick eating like the green ball with the kitten, or like doing the level 3 fire cape with a new method, because like the old method got patched, so I had to come up with like a new one. And I feel like after that, like that was kind of like my segue into more PVM stuff, I guess. And now I would say I'm probably more focused on just PVM stuff and maybe less so like other aspects of the game, but I still enjoy everything.
Yeah, awesome. Right, so the first part of this is going to be, we're going to have like different sections in this video, and the first part of this is about challenge questions. So the little the backstory here sort of thing is that I put out maybe a month or 2 months ago a list of 3 distinct challenges around the DT2 Awakened bosses, and these consisted of an Awakened raid, which is killing all 4 of the DT2 Awakened bosses in a row and in the same inventory, no help, no alts, things like that. A second challenge was doing the most Leviathan KC in one inventory. All these challenges are like one inventory crafted, highly curated. And then the third challenge was a low budget Vardorvis, again awakened, and trying to make players like use the smallest budget possible to get a kill. And so those were the 3 distinct challenges. Each had a prize pool. The awakened raid was 1 bill. The other 2 were 500 mil. And so Port took home the awakened raid. Noobtype did a follow-up awakened raid. And I asked specifically and paid 100 mil. I still got to pay you money, actually, dude. But
All right.
yeah, finally. But Noobtype took home awakened raid as a runner-up thing for 100 mil. And Noobtype also did the awakened Vardorvis budget in just under 200k, which is crazy. And if you guys are interested in these videos, they're going to be in the description. There's like a separate video up at this point. And then lastly, Port did a 22kc Leviathan trip, which is beyond my understanding, to be honest. I thought people would do like 15kc, maybe 16, but 22 is like ridiculous to see. So that's the caliber we're dealing with here. And that's like the idea of the challenges. So if these sound crazy, it's because they are. They were some of the hardest challenges, I think, that have been put up, especially with a prize pool. But this set of questions that we're going to go through is talking about those challenges in particular and everything they thought about them and, all that. So first up, easiest question, I guess. Did you guys enjoy them? First thoughts upon seeing them and then trying them.
All right, Noobtype, you want to go first on this one?
Sure. For the most part, they're really cool challenges. At first, I wasn't really interested. When I first heard about it, I was still busy like lobbing out No Stun Leviathan.
Yeah.
And later on, when I had time, I eventually wanted to try it too.
Did they sort of live up to the expectations as far as how hard they were?
Oh yeah.
Because I guess compared to a lot of the other stuff that existed, either TOA-wise or other Leviathan challenges, I thought that these would definitely be, especially the likes of the Awakened Raid, I thought would be sort of like a 10 attempt thing for like the high level of player, something like that. But it does require good routing and whatnot. But yeah, what about you, Paul?
Well, okay, so like talking about the awaken rate, since you just mentioned it, like a 10 attempt thing, I would say that's like about right. Like that, I mean, I think Noobtype pretty much almost won and done it like before the competition. Took me a bit, probably like a couple of runs after getting to what was it? I think Whisperer was my second boss the first time around. I don't remember, but yeah, I would say like your estimate there is about right. Going back to the original question, did I enjoy the challenges? Yeah, I mean, I 100% did, right? But there, like, obviously there were also moments of like frustration with it, I guess, because like dying when you have like a big kill streak going to like just making a dumb mistake or whatever is like obviously in that moment tilting, right? But I mean, that's what adds to the challenge, I guess, and that's what made it feel like good to eventually complete the run. I will say though, like you asked, like how much fun was it versus like when I first heard about it. When I first heard about it, I definitely had like some, I don't know what the word is, right? But there's one rule in particular which I was not a fan of.
We'll get to it for sure.
Okay, we'll get to it. We'll talk about that later then. So yeah, I enjoy them for sure.
Yeah, okay. I figured that most players in you guys' position especially would see them and be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then fundamentally, I think the prize pool aspect is necessary to drive some competition. We're going to get to this too, but like there were so few people who were actually submitting stuff for this. Literally 3 people total for this kind of thing. So we'll get to that as well, but it's interesting to see the actual lack of interest, even with these crazy prize pools. Maybe not that crazy, but they're big. Right, question 2. Would there be anything different about any of the challenges rule-wise? Would you guys have changed something about the nature of it or the rule set or made it harder, easier? What's up? Give it to Port this time for the first part.
All right. So it depends like when you want me to answer this question, right? Because like I was saying, like after doing it,
we can get to it. We can get to it.
Okay, so in that sense, no, I wouldn't have changed anything.
Okay. We did revise a few times about certain aspects of certain rules that weren't quite clear. And for this kind of nature of this challenge, we do have to revise them. And it was a big rule list too. It was like 20 lines of rules to like distinguish certain things you couldn't do.
Right, because you eventually have to start getting really specific, or somebody's gonna do something that
Yeah.
like you won't wind up liking, like the daily items thing, like
Yep.
using Fowley Shield or whatever, you know.
Yeah, so it's a bit tricky. One of the rules was play to the spirit of the competition, which I think covers a lot of bases, but it's it's never an all-inclusive thing. Noobtype, what about you? Anything would have changed, or think it was just about right?
For the most part, I think it was fine.
Mhm.
It's just I do agree in part with the axe rule.
Yes. Let's talk about Axe rule
Wait,
then.
I didn't even
Yeah.
say it, by the way. It's just like it's just you.
Just the elephant here. Yeah. So
Right.
for those wondering, the Axe rule is a rule that applied to Vardorvis for all the challenges. And the idea here is that there was a method that emerged that allowed you to sit more or less any corner of the room and dodge between two specific tiles. And this when timed correctly, would jump over the X's. And this was something that even Arcane, who designed the boss, said it went kind of against the fundamental nature of how you are meant to fight it, against intended design. Such that, it's a small room, you're meant to dodge the X's, it's meant to feel good, it's meant to feel reactive. And this method kind of took away from that a little bit. So one of the rules I placed down was you can't do that. You have to actually stay in the center of the room and try to dodge the X's as intended. And I got a lot of flack for this, somewhat understandably, about how, let people play the way they want to, but personally, the reason I put the rule in there was because I think it was simply too easy without that. And maybe Noobtype, this is the one for you, because you did so much KC, and I assume most of it, if not all of it, was done with axe skipping. So I guess the question is that a fair rule to have, considering? Would it be too easy without?
It would definitely be too easy.
Yeah.
And another thing, when I looked into more about axe skipping, you get in like a good amount of DPS compared to axe skipping, because
Yeah.
if you were to skip, you'd have to lose a tick or two just to dodge.
Yeah, sometimes
But
the axe timing is like, you can't control it, you just have to go.
Mhm.
When you could attack otherwise, yeah.
So like no axe skipping allows you to reposition, and you can really time, you can really adjust your attack cycles to where it's almost like tick loss. So like generally, like, if so compared to like Redx Baba, if you were to do the boss normally, you get railed just by chip damage alone. But at the cost of no not using any supplies, Vardorvis kind of has a different way of like I guess cheesing. So getting more DPS would be beneficially better in the long run
Yeah.
compared to what do you call it? Not compared to Vardorvis.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like at Baba, you sacrifice a tick, and if you took the same damage, obviously you wouldn't do it. That's the reason why.
Mhm.
And then Vardorvis, I guess, in theory Vardorvis is better to not axe skip, but it's trickier to pull off. That's the trade-off. Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting rule. There's a lot of people who were just like, "Damn, dude, come on, man, we can't do this." And to be fair, I think especially early on, there were so few people who were willing to, because it was known about by the time the bosses were released. There were so few people who were actually still not axe skipping at that time. So it was like, But yeah, a funny rule anyway, but I think a necessary one, which I guess you guys more or less agree on.
I don't. So like, I have some thoughts about it, right? It's
Yeah,
like, At first, when I first saw the rules, I was like, "Oh man, this is dumb." Like Eddie's saying, "Oh, that's the right way to do a boss." Yeah, the axe skipping is cheesy. I was like, man, it's like it was like annoying me, like
Yeah.
an abnormal amount that you were like so stubborn about that rule.
Yeah.
But I think that after I did actually try, and by the way, like for a while, I was like, yeah, I'm not even gonna bother. I'm not even gonna try, because it's like, oh, that rule is just stupid, right? It's almost like a cop out for me that like I don't have to bother because I don't like the rules or whatever. But once I did actually try, I did kind of realize like, oh, there is actually like kind of some merit to the rule, because it does change how you do the boss. It does make it more difficult. So and like it's your challenge, right? You can do whatever you
Yeah,
want, and it does like kind of still seem a little bit arbitrary to me, because like
For sure.
I don't know
it's
if I
on the
would say
fence.
it's like I don't know if I would say like, oh, that's the correct way to do the boss, but like
I
it
would say it's the
definitely does
intended way.
change.
Correct.
It probably is. It
Correct way,
probably
not so
is.
much, but intended,
Right.
sure.
Right, like nobody on their first KC should be doing that, but
No.
yeah, no, it did like change the boss, and I think in a way that was actually good for the challenges. Like I enjoyed having to do it in the end. So
Awesome. Okay, question 3. I'll post this stuff in Discord, by the way, so you can. I'm not gonna just say it and leave it. It'll be in Discord. So question 3 was, there were almost no submissions despite the main tweets and pings collecting nearly 100,000 impressions. I was saying it repeatedly on stream throughout the release week, posted it in Discord multiple times, and only 3 people actually submitted anything. So for a 2 bill prize pool and heavily curated challenges, the question is like, why was this the case? I thought that this was because they were either too difficult, the rule set was too specific and large. For the players that were interested, the GP prize pool is not enough because you guys have access to such crazy money makers that maybe the GP doesn't matter. Perhaps that because it was a one and done for a lot of challenges, it was like you're not getting a runner-up prize. If you don't win, you're not getting anything, and especially that one I think is a bit of a turn-off. And there were probably other ones such as like orb cost, just upfront cost to run the challenge in the first place. And then lastly on my list was Port, before I'd even released the challenges, had done an awakened raid just minus the axe skip rule, just for fun, just to have a little bit of fun. And that probably turns people off immediately because they're like, well, I'm gonna lose, and therefore they don't get anything. But that was my like list of reasons why it didn't quite really get the submissions I was hoping for. Not that that matters, but that was what I thought anyway. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, would you have expected more people to even try it? What's the big turnoff here, I guess?
You have any thoughts, Noobtype, or shall I?
I can't think of it right now.
Okay. So I mean all the reasons you listed have something to do with it, right? And I think some like combine kind of like you said, there's no runner-up prize. And then when you factor in that there is any kind of cost, especially an orb cost, which is like not insignificant, it does like kind of have like a like why should I even bother kind of thing going on, right?
Yeah, totally.
And I think it also has to do with the content itself, because outside of the GP reward for this specific challenge, if you feel like you're not going to win the GP, there's not really much else that you're going to get out of the content, because it's like it's content that normally you're going to do 1 KC in each and then stop forever, right? Most people aren't going to really feel as if they're gaining anything by killing the bosses more or like doing Vardorbus without axe skipping.
Yeah, totally. So like if this was like a raid challenge, at least people are going to get raid loot, right? Like you might hit a purple at the end of the day. But this was just maybe like an unfortunate circumstance for all these particular reasons plus that.
Yeah, and I think like not just like the fact that they can get raid loot, but also like people want to, I guess, get better and improve at raids more than they would at awakened boss, because like they feel like awakened bosses are they're kind of pointless, right? There's no progression, like actual real game progression to learning them at all. The only kind of progression you're gonna get is like maybe you'll just improve your skills by getting better at the bosses, right? Which for a lot of people maybe they're just not interested in.
Yeah, that's true.
Another thing I want to add is since orb costs since orb maintenance is pretty costly, I think runner-up prices for this specific challenge would be really good for this.
Yeah, I think so too in hindsight. It's tricky because the amount of GP that is required, it's not a crazy amount, but for instance, I don't make a crazy amount from raiding right now. Across, I think, 4 months of TOA, I've made 4 bill. But a lot of that goes back in. I want to fund other stuff, so I guess it's just tricky unless you happen to have a large GP pool to run this kind of stuff and throw up a massive prize pool. Like something like 5 bill with runner-up prizes would have been probably way more interesting for a lot of people. But that's also a chunk of cash, you know. So
I mean,
I get it.
Like for me, I feel like even though the GP was like a decent amount for first place, like getting a bill for the Awaken raid was pretty good, right? Like the Leviathan one, 500 mil, like I wasn't even, for like me when I was competing for it, I didn't even really think about the GP, to be honest. Like I 100% lost money going and attempting that and learning that, just because
Really?
literally did. Yeah, oh, 100%.
Ooh.
I lost like a few hundred mil, but honestly, I feel like I probably would have spent those orbs on that boss either way, just because I did enjoy it and I did want to actually like get that done regardless. And I feel like like Noobtype is probably the same because like before these challenges
Yeah.
were even a thing, right? Noobtype had like triple digit combined KC at all the bosses already. So like he's also just like spending his money just to do these bosses for fun, right?
Yeah.
Like he probably doesn't care that much about the GP either, I would imagine.
That's true. I heard Noobtype, you spent like, I don't know, probably like 3-4 bill on orbs or something crazy. I don't know, maybe more.
Oh, I should definitely spend more. I spent
That's
6 bill, I
terrifying.
think.
Oh god, that's terrifying. That's terrifying.
How rich, man.
The
How rich is
replayability of
he?
these bosses are fun. It's too good to
Yeah.
pass up.
Just a shame the orb
only
price is
downside-
there, but
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, that's what GP's for, man. Just throw it and
Right?
have fun. Like
totally.
it's better
Yeah.
than just hoarding it in your bank, right?
Winner's attitude. I see. But yeah, okay. Let's get to question 4. We've got 5 questions in this one. All right, question 4 is: would you guys be interested in participating in highly curated challenges such as these in the future? And more importantly, do you think it's worthwhile to run them? I do, because the amount of content we get, the showcasing that we get from this, like seeing the actual final product is really interesting to me, and I think to a lot of other people they'd love actually watching the challenges. But yeah, would you? I mean, I assume you guys would do them, but you know.
I'll let Noobtype go first on this one.
Rounds like these, I definitely like would want to run because not even though it seems kind of pointless, it's still like a fun like challenge that doesn't really help you any worse in the game, or it might. It keeps me from being burnt.
That's a good one. Yeah, that matters a lot. Yeah, Port.
Yeah, like honestly, exact same boat as Noobtype. Like the challenges give me something to think about, right, and like something to do. Whereas I probably would have been burnt as well if I weren't doing them. So no, it's fun. It's like I want to do these things, but I can't like maybe think of them or like have like the incentive to do them without like you offering them as a challenge, I guess. Like in this case, so I was glad that I had like an excuse to do the Leviathan stuff for the Awakened raid.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know how many YouTube videos you guys both have. Port, I think you have 9. You don't even have double digits yet. You're nearly there. Noobtype, I don't know how many, like maybe 30, 40 videos, something like that.
No, I don't have double digits.
Oh, really? Neither of you guys?
Like 5.
Yeah, so like neither of you guys are really like YouTubers, but you do put up the challenges for people to see. And interestingly, these particular videos you guys both put up have like crazy views, just crazy views for the amount of people who are actually subbed to the channel. So people clearly enjoy watching these things, whether or not they either understand them or like truly care about the challenge itself. It's just fun to see people try stuff, right? At the end of the day, that's what I think the real value is, at least.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
I think more people come to my channel for the editing.
Oh yeah, I mean, to be fair, both your music choice and your editing is fantastic.
Oh,
Do you edit your own videos, like all of them?
Yeah,
that's
all
awesome.
of them. It's all done by me.
That's sick, actually. Yeah.
Dude,
I'm a trash
Noobtype
editor.
videos are crazy, man. He's so good at editing.
No, that top tier. Like for all the challenge videos, I can't do anything close to that, unfortunately. I can slap something together, but not like that quality. It's cool though.
Dude, the editing I did for the video I just put up was 0. I didn't even cut out the AFK time. I just put the whole VOD because I just couldn't, man. I wish I had Noobtype's editing skills, man. He makes some sick videos.
Yeah, we get like the one release. I don't know, like maybe a release every 3-4 months at this rate, and it's like, dude, patiently waiting. It's the same for I think a lot of exact stuff. Like you remember his hardcore montage? It's like one Death Hardcore, and it was like 3 years of progress. Here's a video, dude. Waiting 3 years for it, like, man, come on. But it's cool to see, guys. It's really nice to see the stuff. Main reason I think is that. Okay, last question about these particular challenges is: could you compare these challenges to other extreme challenges that each of you has done? So high early invo TOA, 500s, bike caves, inferno speedruns, or different strategies for different niche things. Like, where do these fall in terms of difficulty or interest? What's the comparison, basically?
Yeah, so I guess the main two that I really competed in were the Leviathan one and the Raid one. So I could probably draw a comparison for both of them, and that would be, or like both of them individually. That would be like the Raid kind of felt like um the early Toa I did, where
Oh,
I guess that run was kind of like unique, I guess, because I was like really struggling for supplies, and I felt like there was a similar aspect to that with the Awakened raid, whereas like you're trying to get a setup where you can like squeeze as much of the like supplies and also bring like all the like completely necessary items that you like absolutely need, rather than like I don't know. I feel like for a lot of PVM content, you just kind of bring like max gear, max switches, right? So it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of nice to have something where you have to like try to craft a setup where you're really like min maxing your bonuses for like the minimum amount of slots, just so you can fit like as much supply stuff as you can.
Yeah.
Um, the Leviathan one, honestly, is it's kind of a weird comparison, but I did notice like some similarity with it to the the challenge I did where I killed Zuck without hitting it, because that was like the same kind of aspect where you have to sort of pull something off like many multiple times in a row, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
doing it once isn't that
Consistency
difficult.
challenge.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Consistency challenge. Yeah. And I remember like kind of doing some rough math with the Zuck thing, trying to figure out like what my chance of like landing an adequate amount of barrage was, just to like see how the odds stacked up when you're doing it like 30 plus times in a row. Because you know, like even if you have like a 1% chance of failing, if you have to do it 30 times in a row, like
Not fun.
it'll add up, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of remembered I was like thinking about that as well for Leviathan. It's like, oh my god, if I have like a 95% success rate and I have to do it 22 times, like there's actually like it's actually still pretty difficult. Or
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but yeah. And there's also like an aspect to that where I noticed that the first like attempt in like a long sequence of things is always like the worst one, and like as you get further into a run, like say I'm like 15 Leviathans in or whatever, I feel like your success rate drastically increases because you're like focused in, because now you realize like, oh, there's like those 15 attempt or kills on the line, you know, like I gotta focus up.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, like
Stakes increasing.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. Like that means like, oh, you're just kind of trolling on the earlier ones because you're like not focused or whatever. So
It's kind of true. I've seen that a few times. For Inferno, it's the same thing for speedruns. You don't care so much in the early waves, but if you're on pace, then it matters.
yeah,
It's
for
the same
sure.
same thing. Yeah. Do you guys do your own math when figuring out these strats and like trying to calc it out? You just like sit down and crunch numbers?
Honestly, I have not crunched many numbers for anything I've done. I'll be honest, I'm not a math guy. The one
dude,
thing that I
me neither.
really sorry, go on.
Me
Oh,
neither.
yeah, I mean, the one thing I felt like I really needed math for was when I was doing level 3 fight caves, I was really trying to figure out what my success chance was to finish at level 3 rather than level 4.
Yeah.
Just like weighing the odds of how many melees I need to recoil for like having a realistic chance. And I just got GE challenged to do like all of that for me. I kept going back to him like
That's
asking like,
great.
hey, if I kill 9 melees, like what do the odds look like? Can you like come back with a nice graph for me? Because I just didn't know how to do that. So,
Yeah, if in doubt, ask GE challenge is a good idea. I've
exactly.
got a few people like that. I'll go to Small Core Kirby and just be like, guys, do you mind? Just, you got something here and look at. But yeah, I guess like as far as the math goes, it doesn't matter too much. Most of us at high level, I think, have a pretty good understanding of success rates and likelihoods and things, regardless of crunching numbers. You like for the Leviathan, it's like you have like a 3% chance to fail or a 5%. It's around that ballpark, so it doesn't matter too much.
Right. Yeah.
It adds up. Noobtype, I heard you did like a ton of not number crunching, but like a ton of theory crafting for the TOA stuff, especially in the early days.
Yeah, for the early Toa, there was so much with what do you call it? I even had help from Sax,
Yeah.
some tech. Then a friend of mine helped me create the melee prison. for Kefri, then yeah. So that like I think half of the theory drafting was done by other people. Then I say like 3 or 4 of the people were involved.
Yeah, a little bit of a group effort then.
Yeah.
That's quite cool. I've had a few challenges
Then-
and things where I always had the same kind of like group effort thing. You split into groups and like do one part and another part, and it all like adds up at the end to make sense.
Oh, then compared to these challenges, I'd compare it to early Toa. I think me and Port know how hard early Toa was before they made a bunch of changes to make it easier.
Yeah, man, that update that they did was crazy. When they did like the 4x shadow and like a bunch of invo changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And-
yeah.
Because, dude, you know what I completely forgot about was like doing those early Toas. We were doing like fucking 6 down P2 or something ridiculous, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was
And the supply
disgusting.
cost was horrible.
Yeah, because you had to run the what is it, quiet prayers, and you take
Quiet prayers, yep.
so much damage from that shit.
So
And,
yeah,
like especially at P2 where it's like, oh my god, it was just so much.
yeah. The early 500s, I remember people running in, and like I remember running in with like 20 odd restores, thinking I might not have enough. And nowadays people are entering on like 7 or 8, and like I'm chilling, it's okay. This
I kind of forgot that whole like, I don't know, those like few weeks there where we were doing early Toa, and then there was like the 4x shadow, and then
Yeah.
the fan kit came out. It's like so much changed in that like month.
It was a big month for TOA. Yeah. This before we move on from this stuff, I guess this last question comes, not last question, but last point was about supplies. I think a lot of these challenges in particular, a lot of the challenges you guys have done have been about supply management. Both choosing a suitable setup that has enough DPS to get you through what you're trying to do, while also being constrained within the 28 slots that you're functioning. Do you think like good challenges require some level of management with that? Otherwise, I guess I don't know, it feels like it's a different thing almost. Even like speedruns nowadays require a certain amount of restores to make the run work. So, I don't know, I think good challenges need a level of supply management, a level of constraint around that. A level of like, I don't know, urgency with how you craft your setup.
I definitely agree with you. I don't know if I would necessarily say that it requires it, but I have like noticed this before that I think I enjoy PVM challenges a lot more when inventory space actually does feel like much more of a constraint. Like as opposed to doing stuff like large team tops where you're taking like every single switch because you just can, right? Like
Yeah, and then it feels like it feels like a race. Yeah, it feels like a race to just get all your switches off, and if you miss one, it's like that's what the problem was, and that's not as interesting as, I guess the supply management feels more interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I really like having the supply management thing, especially like I remember for the fight caves, I was like sheeting every wave solve that I did, and I was like trying to count how many slices of cake I needed for each wave.
That's great.
I was like, when I was building my inventory, I had to like accommodate for that amount of cakes, and I was like, oh shit, do I take like an extra cake or two? Because like, what if I have to restart the wave? Like, it would be like a disaster if I had not enough cake, like 60 waves in.
Not enough
I know,
cake.
B5 had like a similar situation with his cape where like Pnex were super difficult to get on his account, but he needed them for some of his wave solves. And there was one wave where he got so unlucky on poisoning that he was about to get 6-hour logged. He was like literally a couple minutes away, and that happened to be a wave that he needed a Pnex on. So if he didn't get the RNG that wave, it would have just been over because like he would have just not had the Pnex to do the wave again. And somehow by some miracle he managed to get the poison like 20 ticks before he got 6-hour log that the major died. But
Jeez.
like the amount of stress that must have added to him, like I don't know. Maybe it is like a little bit iffy because that's RNG, but like I feel like it must have been such a crazy like experience for him with that level of stress that it added.
It's really funny. A lot of the great challenges are super stressful. I know for Exact's 40 combat, 39 combat stuffs, he was stressed for a lot of that, man. And then when we did the GIM when we went for the GIM and he went for first Infernal on the GIM, we were all like egging him on, like, come on, man, you can do it with these supplies. You can do it at this level. And he was like, dude, I've got no sleep. Please leave me alone. Probably I still feel a bit bad for like pushing him on that one, but yeah, I think the stress like I guess good challenges will end up stressing you at the end of the day. They'll end up testing you, is what it's about. But that's the point, so that's good in a way.
So what I like about challenges that what I like about challenges like those is the less supplies you go through, n- uh, it kind of makes you realize that you need to find a new, different method to like work out with your supply count and stuff.
Yeah.
So finding methods like those are really fun.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
It's interesting. I think a lot of the time for what we do at high level is very locked in stone. And it's only when you start doing these things you realize that maybe there's some completely different set of weaponry or gear or inventory setup that you have to work with. But like no one innovates to that level. And a lot of these types of challenges, these types of things, they help innovate that. They help bring that into light, which is really cool.
Right, because there is no real reason to maybe do some of those like
No.
more weird methods in like a normal setting or context, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
I will say though, I think
Okay.
in the context of this challenge, right? I think for the Awakened raid, honestly, the supplies were in the end not that big of a deal. Like
No. You brought in like 4 brews, I think. Port brought in 6. I think that's how it was.
I think so. Yeah,
You guys Yeah.
I ditched as much as I could, and I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna brute force it. I'm gonna ditch as many things as I can, bring as many brews. I didn't bring the Shadows ring. I just walked to every boss. Yeah. And I mean, it paid off because I took fucking 50 damage before nuke started. So I was
the
pretty
Duke,
glad I
yeah.
brought extra supplies when that happened.
That was great to watch. Yeah, what were the differences between the 2 runs? The 2 brews was one slot was a blowpipe, and I forget what the other slot was, but something useful.
Noobtype took Missouri legs,
That's
and I
it,
just camped
yeah.
ancestral legs,
Yeah.
and he brought a ring, and I didn't.
Oh, I didn't notice the ring. Okay, yeah, but interestingly, fairly similar setups overall.
Yeah, I think.
I copied.
Sorry, go on.
Or homework.
Oh,
Yeah.
that explains.
I think
Yeah.
for our first runs, you did a run with that or with X skipping, right? Noobtype.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
it
think
was
we
running
had.
on stream.
Yeah, I think we had like the same setup, if I remember correctly. Or you were taking a web weaver, I think, and I wasn't. Maybe.
I took 5 restores when I ran it that time,
Oh,
and then
okay.
and 3 brews that later on switched on to 4 and 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
three is crazy,
4 and 4
man. 3 is
sounds
crazy.
way better.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3. What the hell?
Put doubling up. All right. Any last words about the actual challenges themselves?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Sure.
When I was doing Leviathan, I got a 20 out of 21 kill trip and a 19 out of 21 kill trip, and I was
Holy crap.
feeling miserable. But I mean, I still didn't want to submit that because like it feels so bad just not finishing like
It's like
what
you
started.
You had a very planned inventory, right? So you knew you could do it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And even just like dying 1 kill early means like, oh, I could have done every single kill with like double the amount of prayer usage or brought in like a whole range pot, you know? So yeah, I think that's it for my memories on the challenge.
Awesome.
I started attempting that yesterday. Only got to like 10 kills. I died during a lightning phase, so I path into 2 orbs, which dropped me to which lost me like 30 no 20 HP. Then I had a tornado spawn on top of me. I'm like, what?
That's awful.
If it was a tall away, I'm like, I can dodge that, but if it spawns directly on top, it's like,
no, death
how do
sentence.
I even predict that?
Yeah, is there a way to know? Like, I guess if you keep moving east or something, and it like always like a Versignator spawns west of you. I don't know anything about the tornado stuff.
I haven't looked too much into it, but there might be a pattern.
Yeah, I'd hope so. Otherwise, it's a bit bullshit. But hey, maybe something for the new challenges to think about. Don't spawn tornadoes, Arcane. Stop it. Okay.
Also, don't spawn on top of me.
Yeah. Might be a mechanic next time. Just gotta look out for it. Okay, let's move on.
Did you say that was yesterday, Noobtype?
Yeah, yesterday.
Oh, so you're going for a kill streak as well, even after the challenge is over?
It's a fun challenge.
It is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Are you going for 23 or 24 by any chance?
I loved it out. Turns out I can go 25.
25 is massive if you can get 25.
25. Is that? Are you
This
doing one sand view or are you doing like no stun?
uh one sand view.
Jeez,
Then
that's crazy.
people camp me.
I
Yeah,
didn't.
I was thinking
Yeah.
Tebow camp only definitely is the play.
I didn't think no stun would be the consistent enough. Maybe 1 kill, but not like 25.
I mean that's what I was thinking. Like no shot, he's doing that, right?
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Oh, speaking of that, um, were you Addy? Were you going to have that up as one of your challenges?
I have what up?
No stun
No stun.
Leviathan.
I wasn't going to. I'm still probably not going to. It's weird because this whole thing for me from the start was like I considered it to be sort of almost unethical and unfavorable to run because of the plugin thing. So I wasn't like sure I was going to do it. And now that it's like been done and people have practiced, it's not actually that difficult. You just need to be able to practice a bit and get used to the timing, and it's like fine, I think personally. So I don't know. I don't think it's that crazy personally. Maybe if it was like multiple in a row and it was a consistency test again, it would be more interesting, but not on its own, I don't think. To be honest, I think I'm mostly done running the challenges for DT2. I want them for Colosseum now. Because there's going to be so much cool stuff like, you know, budget Colosseum or speedrun or mistake percent. I don't know. There's loads of really fun stuff. There's even plenty for Inferno left to do. But I'm reserving those for an event in, well, next month, I think, next month or two. We're doing some fun ones. They're not secret or anything. There's going to be one that's going to be called Nibbler percent. So it's a speed run where the nibblers spawn in the middle of the Inferno, whatever. And whichever pillar they go to, you have to start touching that pillar on the next wave. Just as a speedrun setting.
Okay.
Just some really fun stuff like that. There's a few in that position that are just like very fun to run, very interesting to run, and should like force people out of their comfort zone from what they know. So that's my next. I think in the winter, that's the next set of things I'll do. But that'll be from Inferno Discord, not from like my own set of challenges.
Right.
Okay.
The pillow thing sounds pretty cool. Oh, sorry.
No, I keep trying to go on, but no, it's fine. Continue.
My bad. I was gonna say the pillow thing sounds pretty interesting because I know like some people have looked at like potentially starting south, right? Like they were saying like you get some cool vendor setups if you start south or something.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see.
All the NPCs southwest covers the nibblers, so it's like it's a great chin tile as well as Venator tile. Seabear is all over it, but
yeah,
there's some merit there, which is really interesting. As far as speedruns go, like early wave south pillar might actually just be better, but it's really hard to get the chins off. It's really hard to get chin stacks until they reach the pillar. So I think it's a weird thing where in the early waves NPCs don't have enough HP to maximize that compared to the standard start tile, and then when you get to like the mid waves, it is actually better. And then you get to 50s and it's worse again. Something like that would be really interesting, but I don't know. It's for another generation to figure out. Okay, I'm going to try to move on here. Any last words? For like the fourth time. Okay, that's all the challenge stuff done. We're going to talk about the Colosseum, which is going to be the latest and biggest, hopefully, update to endgame PVM. And for those wondering, Colosseum is basically it's sort of like a reskinned Blue Inferno that is going to be taking place as the main centerpiece of Varlamore. So this is coming in Q1 2024, and the idea is Blue Inferno was a game jam project from I think 2 years ago now, a creation of I believe Mod Huskies, and it was meant to be basically Inferno but better. And we all love Inferno, but the way you would make Inferno better is by making the waves shorter, more compact. Instead of having like 69 waves, you would have like 12 waves. So it would be, and the second thing, it would have replayability. It would have incentive tied in to replay the content through GP and maybe some good rewards. That was the idea of Blue Inferno, and instead of doing that, they pushed it into the Colosseum as the same idea but reskinned. So that's what the Colosseum is. It's super exciting, got a bunch of videos up, and they're beginning to bring out blogs on things. But the next few questions in this like little segment is going to be talking about that and what we all think about it. So let me jump into Q1, which is, again, a really nice, easy one. On a scale of 1 to Inferno release, where do you think this will land for you? And it's still really early, but first thoughts on it, and, you know, is it gonna deliver is the question here. Is it what you want? Are you interested?
So I wasn't around when Inferno was released. So, but from the other updates, Tob and Toa, I think it is another major title that's going to be on par with those two, Raids and Inferno. From what I've seen with the Awakened bosses, I do have high hopes for this new Colosseum.
Dude, I was
Yeah,
gonna say the exact same thing for real. Because I also wasn't there for Inferno release, but like in the context of a question, if you're saying like 1 to Inferno release, I assume you're like meaning like Inferno release would be the 10, and I honestly have a lot of faith that it's gonna be that good.
yeah, this makes 3. I was also not here for Inferno release, so we're in the same boat. Came in, I think I was playing in the year that Inferno got released, but I was not good enough to even know about it or watch Twitch or participate.
I was just getting
But
to
yeah.
Warcraft when I got
Yeah,
back to the game.
similar time.
Dude, I was playing, I was just like 1K total or something, so
All about the same. Yeah. Um, yeah. This as successor. I think a lot of us are calling it the successor. Maybe they're not using that phrasing, but I think that's what a lot of us want anyway. It's like we love wave-based minigames. Maybe not Bubba, but the rest of it's great. It seems like it has like the formula that works. I guess I don't really know. It just seems to work well. So high hopes, anyway, is the bottom line here. High hopes. Q2. Are the currently proposed rewards in a good place? And what do we think especially about the untradeable Biss range cape, which is a quiver now?
dude, the best range cape made me smile when I read about it, because like that was for me what like kind of cemented it as like being another like Inferno kind of thing, because
Mhm.
there is like an untradeable, and even though like the slot technically doesn't matter, I do feel like it being a cape is like almost iconic in a way, because like all like the like achievement items in this game are like capes, right? Like skill
Yeah,
cape,
all of them.
Inferno cape, all that. So I felt really happy about that. In terms of like balancing, it sounded so strong. I think they changed it today, but like before it was like plus 20 range accuracy on your blowpipe and like another max.
Yeah,
Dude, it sounded disgusting. Like you're actually gonna just be like shredding melees and Inferno. It actually sounded like really fun. Like I really wanted to try it. I'm sure I still will. Like when like the Colosseum dies down, I can't wait to use the new cape in Inferno. I'll probably try a few runs again.
yeah. Well, it used to be plus 20 accuracy, which brings blowpipe, like, you know, you just melt melees now, which would be awesome. They did change it today, as it turns out. I think they changed it. There's 2 things that changed. I can read it off the site. One was that a lot of people were asking, like, this is a quiver, and maybe give it an effect to hold a bolt and an arrow. And that's what they're proposing. They're saying, like, we're going to let you hold both at the same time. And the way it would work is if you have a T-bow equipped, you just fire the arrow. If you have a ZCB equipped, you fire the bolt. There's no switching, no nothing, which is really cool. I like it.
I'm a fan of
Um,
that as well.
Finally, we're getting a usable quiver in game.
Yep, usable real quiver. And yeah, I like it a lot. Like, that one slot frees up a lot of space. Like, it's, you know, we're talking about supply stuff. One slot nowadays means a lot in terms of what you can squeeze in.
Mm-hmm.
But words like those I really like, because like it changes a lot throughout like the whole game.
Yeah. One, I guess, obvious example is I don't think ZCB would be good at Inferno, but no one is even considering it because it's 2 slots as it stands. And you can't afford to give up 2 slots for anything. But 1 slot makes it semi-viable, which is really interesting. And yeah, the other change to the quiver was that it says ammo fired from the quiver gains an additional +1 ranged strength, totaling the +4 we showed off initially. So it's just making ammo stronger, I guess, which I think is fine. Just some balancing thing from them.
Right, just favoring bows a little bit more than it is blowpipe compared
Yeah.
to before. Which is fine. I mean, I would have loved to try the 20 range accuracy blowpipe, but maybe it's for the best that it's only +10 for blowpipe.
Yeah, perhaps.
Also, I'm a big fan of them saying like it's gonna be automatic because that means I'll never be standing there trying to shoot arrows from my crossbow or something stupid like that. So
Yeah, happens all the time.
Yeah,
It's just
thank
not
God
fun.
they get locked out for an
Yeah.
entire attack.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's one of those annoying things. Just one of those old, I don't know, they're never going to change it, but frustrating. What about the other rewards? So how about the glaive? Glaive feeling good, looking good? What are we thinking?
I was trying to think like what you'd use the glaive for, and it's kind of hard to like
Yeah, this is the
see.
bit.
Yeah, it's like I feel like they're trying to be super safe with it, but to the point where it's like, oh, any use that it has is gonna be like turbo niche, right? And also like, I don't know if you saw the attack speed was like 6 ticks, and the attack range was 5, which feels like
Oh,
completely backwards, right? Like I feel like if you have a ranged weapon that slow, it should probably like it makes sense for it to be like a long distance weapon, and it'd also be
yeah.
way better to use as a long distance weapon.
It does
Like
feel a
I'm
bit
like
off.
thinking about running into Maiden or whatever, like instead of entry bowing, like entry glaving, you know.
Sounds
But
much better, if nothing else. Yeah, it's a strange one. I'm not like convinced there are that many use cases. People have been quoting Olmhead, which might be good, and Vasa in like CMs, which again might be good. But I can't personally think of a whole lot of places where it would be more effective than traditional defense lowering stuff. So I think you're kind of right when you say it might just be a bit safe, and they don't want to give
yeah,
like a super OP thing alongside the cape. But I don't know. They did also say there was very little feedback on it, like backlash. So maybe people just aren't sure and again don't really know where it could be good or bad. Just like kind
yeah,
of like, yeah, it's okay.
it's kind of hard. Like you need someone to really kind of sit down and think about it to come up with like a list of uses for it to actually give feedback. I think like you mentioned Ohmhead, I also thought like, oh yeah, dude, Ohmhead is gonna be like bussin' because like you can't DWH that, but
Nope.
someone said that you just can't drain Ohmhead's defense, so
I'm pretty sure you can.
but that sounds
I
pretty
don't know.
good then, especially for the people doing mega scales because they're doing
Yeah.
like double-digit minute Ohmheads, you know.
Yep. It's just like outside of that, are we really getting anything useful? And I think the problem is not so much the fact that the glaive is maybe underpowered, it's more so that you don't really need defense lowering stuff for a lot of content now. Like, as we get stronger armor and more accuracy, or we get stronger spec weapons like ZCB, Claws, Void Waker,
Yeah.
you just don't need to lower defense because it bypasses it. Like, I Void Waker my Vorkath now. I
Yeah.
just
And I
attack
mean,
it. You know?
the way they design new bosses as well is usually like cap defense drain or like defense drains itself if you look at Bard or regions like super quick. So
Yeah. I think the one thing it might point to personally is that if they're going to bring out a weapon like that, they're going to give it a use in the actual content, which lends to it being a range piece of content, at least somewhat primarily. Which I think is expected and good. Doesn't really say much about it, but I suppose that would make sense. Both with Fight Caves and Inferno.
it does make sense, but honestly, I don't know if like the glaive is the thing that's really indicative of that. Like I would have said it would be a range piece of content just because of like what we've seen with Fight Caves and Inferno, and also the fact that we're getting the Avas.
Yeah.
But like the glaive, like in a wave-based minigame, do you really think the glaive would be good? Because it's like defense lowering stuff is like typically really good on stuff with like high health pools, right? That's
Yes.
when you're like getting the real use out of it. So like I don't know if I see the glaive actually being good in the thing itself. Unless there's like a final boss and maybe it's good for that.
Yeah,
But
there is meant to be one, so it could just be the final boss is like super effective or something.
right.
Yeah. Right. Question 3. This is a long one. There appear to be 4 pillars within the Colosseum. So they released some concept art, and there are like 4 pillars spread evenly around the room. I know concept art is never finalized, but we have seen very, very similar concept art being turned into reality from TOA. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that as also the final design as it is now. These will of course be similar to Inferno pillars, and I guess the big question is, do you like the gameplay they provide? Are Inferno pillars and potentially Colosseum pillars generally good and interesting, and what do they provide?
I'll let Noobtype go.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't mind that. I'm not a game developer myself, so I wouldn't create like good ideas like too. But one thing I don't, one thing I never liked in game, is how you can stand behind something
Yeah.
and the NPCs are just like clueless on what to do. They're like, oh, what do we? They just stand there.
It's
So like,
it's a funny thing to see. You wouldn't expect it at least.
yeah. So like having, if they were to bring back that pillar stuff, and they were to implement smart pathing, I think that'd be really interesting. But
Yeah, a lot of NPCs now can freely path around things. They added smart pathing to thralls, for example, where they will now path around the pillar to find an NPC. So I thought it would make sense for them to add a mix of conventional and smart pathing NPCs, because otherwise it would feel a bit silly if you can just trap them. But I also thought to myself that they're adding a glory system, which we'll talk a little bit about as well. And the glory system is a two-part thing. It's firstly about speed, and secondly about mistakes. So you get higher glory for making less mistakes and going faster. And so unlike Inferno, where you're not incentivized to go fast and hiding is like accepted, for Colosseum you actually do want to go fast to get higher glory. And so having NPCs be behind pillars wouldn't matter as much, because the player still wants to try and attack them and actually not just hide. I thought was an interesting distinction here.
I mean, that kind of still like applies to Inferno in a sense as well, right? Because like the thing about the glory system is, I suspect that for getting every like unlock from the glory system, you're not actually gonna have to do like an exceptionally quick or flawless run. I would imagine it's gonna be like do all 12 waves, and you probably have enough glory to just like get all the glory related rewards, right? So I imagine like anyone who's seriously trying to get glory is probably going to be someone who has like a similar mindset to a speedrunner in Inferno. He's like just doing it for like personal achievement or improvement, right?
Mhm.
And like in Inferno as well, it's like you don't like camp behind the pillars, right? You like even in the early waves, you're like pretty much in the middle, like a ton, right? You're only using pillars to really go for off ticks, or I mean, you obviously use it for safe spotting too, but like you're not like chilling behind the pillar is my point, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And personally, I think the pillars in Inferno are awesome. Like for multiple reasons, right? Like if you look at the North Pillar, there's like 6 different tiles or whatever, like around it, like like that are centric to the pillar existing, that all have like a different use case depending on the wave, I guess. Like there's all the different melee safe spots. There's like the one spot south of the pillar for, you know, safe spotting the melee and perfectly reaching the nibblers from max range. I think it just works out really well. Like not only with the spawns, but like the distance between the pillars, as well as like I don't know, it all kind of works together well.
Yeah.
Also, like the nibbler aspect, I think at least for like a like in a first cape setting, I really think the nibblers add a lot to like the kind of stress, I
Yeah.
guess. And it's also like a supply management thing, right?
It's the
Like,
same thing, yeah.
yeah,
It's
I really like that.
like an urgency and stress thing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Giving players like a deadline, really. Like you have to do something about them. You are forced to make a decision.
Yeah, man, you're on wave 62 on your first cape, and the nibblers went north, and you don't know how to kill them. You
Yeah.
start panicking, right? Like, I'm a big fan of that. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts? Or roughly agree?
Yeah, I have
Easy enough.
nothing much.
Yeah, Fort kind of like demolished the entire thing. Yeah. I don't know. I think like this is an interesting thing that always comes up when in discussion, is that a lot of the greatest mechanics, a lot of the greatest sort of most fun methods in particular, they arise from movement in particular. And so when you have a pillar that is, it's kind of forcing you to make movement, or it's forcing you to move around the pillar, and that itself plays into that greatly. There might be specific tiles to reach nibblers or safe spot things or trap melees, but forcing the player to move and learn these locations, like that's one of the most important parts of getting better at Inferno beyond First Cape, and it adds such crazy complexity down the road. So I'm hoping we get the same kind of stuff from Colosseum, really. I don't expect it. I expect it to deliver in pretty much the same way. To jump back, we're talking about like how a lot of the DT2 stuff we all really enjoyed, and I would imagine it's a similar team. Hopefully, Arcane, Husky, you know, the guys who've been working on the latest stuff, will also be working on Colosseum. But like a lot of that stuff has been getting really good, I think. With the exception of perhaps, I think some people say that basically Arcane's DT2 and a lot of the other stuff he might have done feels very only one way to fight it is the best way to put it. There's not like a lot of depth beyond that. For example, take Whisperer. How many like interesting things can you really do at Whisperer? Like nothing, right?
I can't think of anything. I mean, that boss sucks.
That's the thing, though. Does it actually suck? This is the thing, because I think Whisperer is a great boss, but the lack of extra things you can do doesn't. It kind of like takes away from the feeling of it being really interesting. Like a lot of old school bosses have this quirky feeling that you can do lots of stuff to them. So you learn it one way, and then you add things on once you get better. And it doesn't matter what it is, even if it's Baba, because Baba as a boss is so boring. But being able to red X and like the movement and the interest in like all the red X stuff makes it interesting, even if it is just a bit of a bad boss. But yeah, like I don't know. I kind of agree in the sense that maybe the bosses do need a bit more depth to it, but it's really hard to design that.
So one aspect I think they should have is have some sort of high risk, high reward aspect. So like if you like taking a page from Enraged Leviathan, if you miss one prayer, you're pretty much doomed on the next one. So, so having like, high risk, high reward aspects like those would make stuff more interesting. So like you'll realize like your mistake like has like cost you like a lot.
Consequences for it. Yeah.
Whisper, there, like sure you can, sure there's stuff that can still punish you, but you have so much downtime to like know what to do. So I think that's why Whisperer, people like look down upon because like
I guess
I think feels so slow.
Right, and even in bad gear, you're not likely to make too many mistakes. Whisperer has a consequences thing in the form of a sanity bar, but it regenerates, so it doesn't really feel like there's something that you have to look out for or be careful. Inferno, I guess, Inferno is very solve based. If you miss solve, if you make a mistake and go to the wrong tile, even and an NPC paths around the pillar, that's the consequence part, right? That's like the high risk part. So I think pillars generate some of that by default, because if you mistrap something in Colosseum, it's going to come and force you out, or make you. So inherently, it's going to have some of that. But I think you're pretty much dead on with the idea that you have to have something in the fight that has a consequence. There has to be something that once you make the mistake twice, it's over. Making it once is fine, but it puts you on thin ice, kind of thing. That's definitely a big part of a lot of these really interesting bosses, really fun bosses. It's that you have you have to play well enough. There's like a a limit there to how many mistakes at least. Yeah. Right. Question 4 for the Colosseum. So, I missed out the first part of this, but this is about the Vardorvis capture from DT2. So Vardorvis has this new mechanic that we haven't really seen before, and it's like an on-screen clicker thing, a bit like Osu, and we call it a capture or an Osu mechanic. And this is both really fun. I think everyone, almost everyone enjoys this. The question is, do you guys think that this kind of mechanic can continue to arise? Do you think they have the tech to do it? Do you think they have the means and the interest and like the imagination to bring this stuff to life? And is it like okay? Is that fine? Because it's not a conventional mechanic, so maybe it feels a bit out of place. But does that matter?
I think we will see because the captcha thing is like super unique, right? That's like thinking outside the box, right?
Yeah.
I think we will see more stuff like that. I don't personally think that it's an issue in the sense that it's like maybe a layer of unfamiliarity on the game where like people who are playing old school RuneScape are like accustomed to probably their movement, prayer flicking, using stuff in their inventory. I guess
That's it,
probably
yeah.
something else, right? But that like captcha thing adds like kind of like a new element, I guess, right? I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think maybe this is like just specifically in the case for the captcha. I think I honestly didn't really like the capture mechanic that much. I think it was cool like the first few times I did it. I was like, "What? This is like such a crazy idea. Like how did they come up with this? That's so cool." But I think when I realized what it like actually does to the fight, I sort of realized that I don't think I'm the biggest fan of it cuz I feel like it's less of like an issue that you need to deal with and more like a gift to you because like
Yeah,
honestly I feel like when you get the capture it's like oh thank god I can chill for a bit because like all the shit around me stop happening. It kind of breaks up the hecticness of that fight.
that's really true, yeah. There's like a breath of fresh air. It's like, okay, take a second, relax, and then go. As
Mm.
opposed to, holy shit, I'm on a timer, I gotta click this stuff.
I do
Mate,
think the cool thing
yeah.
is like that you can like right click and like
Yeah.
get the hit off as well. That's pretty cool.
So it added a little bit of depth, but ultimately didn't quite feel at place at Vardy, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I would say so. But I mean like just because like it was bad at Vardorvis doesn't mean like unique ideas in general like that are gonna be bad in the future. I'm sure they can come up with some crazy stuff that does actually have a good impact on the boss.
Yeah. The bit for me about this is that it was so out there. I just never expected it, and so it
Right.
makes me kind of interested to see what else they could do like that. It doesn't have to be related to that at all. It could just be something completely new.
Right.
But it's cool that they even have the opportunity to try and do that. Yeah, they might throw us like some completely out of left field thing in Colosseum, just like completely unknown mechanic, which would be amazing. But I guess you got to assess it based on the content.
There's gonna be a mechanic that resizes your client and moves it to the opposite side of your monitor.
Yeah, it'd be very funny if they could pull off something. They go. I'm sure they're going to at some point, whether it be Colosseum. But yeah. Right. Any
Beat this
last?
NPC in chess.
Yeah, there's some funny stuff you could do. Play a mini game inside this.
Yeah, have you guys played the password game? Where you like, there's like a question in there where it's like, oh, in chess notation, right? The most like optimal move for this chessboard.
Oh
Like,
Christ!
imagine if they did something like that.
In Lost Ark, there's a couple of bosses that utilize touch type or keyboard typing. So it'll come up on screen and be like, press these keys, and if you fail it, you get a punishment. But I suspect that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. Although not a great mechanic, it's like a funny one.
Right. It would be entertaining at least. Like when the first time you see it, at least.
Yeah, a nightmare beyond there, but like, oh god. Anyway. Okay, back to the second half of the questions. We do have one or two more from the Colosseum just to run through real quick because we thought they were interesting. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the range armor that's coming from the Colosseum. And this was another thing that was updated today, where previously it was meant to be a flat upgrade to Proselyte, offering more prayer bonus for melee armor. And a lot of players had talked about maybe, hey, what about range and mage? That armor needs some love too. And the recent blog post has offered this new armor. I forget what it's called. Maybe it's just called Sunfire armor. To be,
Probably.
yeah, to be some range proselyte is the idea. So it's going to have more prayer bonus and very low range stats, making it presumably suitable for range slayer and things like that. So what do you guys think about this? I personally think it's, well, pretty fitting, to be honest. It's kind of what they wanted. It's what they needed to do was what they've done.
I mean, the thing is, right? Like, the initial proposal was just like upgraded proselyte, and I think the reason they changed it was like, oh, that's kind of a boring reward. I'm assuming, and I still feel like it's kind of a boring reward. And this is coming from someone who loves using prayer bonus. Like, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not speeding Inferno, I literally love to. I love to take a dragon bone neck instead of anguish, right? 'Cause, dude,
Oh,
that thing is plus 12 prayer. It's so
it's
crazy.
yeah, it
But
is.
like, I don't see like anyone really caring or using about dragon bone necklace, and I mean that just shows, right? Like, it's a rare drop. It's worth like 50k. So I feel like nobody's gonna use the Sunfire armor either.
to me, the reasoning behind it, or like, well, the reason people don't use it is because anguish is so strong.
I mean,
But I mean,
that's a
yeah,
thing, right? We have Missouri now, which is like
right.
the anguishes of like plate and legs. Like it would have made a lot of sense before. I feel when the best was like Black D'hide and Arma. Then I think we actually would have seen it get used a lot. But
Yeah, I agree. Some people nowadays still say like, I'm doing an Inferno task. Should I bring Crystal instead of Missouri? Because they want the prayer bonus, presumably. So I think some people will still think about it, but I agree it's because it lacks damage, and now we have damage and armor.
mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's not meant to be an end-game reward anyway, just like an extra thing. So it's not the biggest deal, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter if their goal is to just have like a filler kind of thing, then so be it. Even if it's just gonna be like maybe even like Iron Man, low level Iron Man, kind of hunting that or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Right. The other question from Colosseum, and this is pertains to a lot of stuff throughout the game, is the quiver is probably going to be bought via services, whether it's going to be legal or illegal services. You're not going to get locked up, but you might get banned. But much like how a lot of the Inferno capes, Fang kits, Blood Torva are all bought, it's very likely that the quiver from Colosseum is also going to be bought. So the big question here is there a way to prevent people from doing this? And if does that actually matter? Should we care?
Any thoughts,
Um,
Noobtype?
so I'm somewhat familiar with this, so I do think it should be like I don't think there's any way they can prevent login services, but I do want them to make it where you can like 1+1 carry someone through a cosmetic or like a unique reward.
Dude, what do you mean? When I asked you if you wanted to duo Colosseum, that's exactly why I asked, man. If
What?
it's gonna be a duo, I need you to carry me.
Oh my god!
One plus
I
two?
need the 1+1.
1+2? Can I tack on? Not be
Yup.
that hard. But yeah, it's like I agree that they will never ever stop these things, and it's probably not stoppable. My one idea that I have for making it so that people are less likely to, which I think is valuable, is there's a glory system attached. Did we talk about the glory system yet? We could always, I think we might have done. We might have touched on it.
Didn't mention it.
We'll go back and do that. But the glory system, it has like speed plus mistakes. And so the faster you are without making mistakes, the more glory you get. But it should be easy to assign a threshold, like you need 5,000 glory to unlock this item. But what if they just made it so it's like you have to do 5 runs with that amount of glory, indicating that you can play consistently and it wasn't an RNG thing, and also presumably dissuading people from buying 5kc. And again, it's not that people won't. Some people will, but I think a lot less people will. Is the idea? Do you think that idea? Do you think that like method works at all, or is there any merit to it?
I 100% think that it would dissuade people from buying it, but I still think that people still can if they really want to, and people still will. But I do think that like it's kind of lame that we have to go that route, right? Like as a regular player, like is a regular player really gonna like want to do it 5 times? I would imagine they probably don't, and they like it almost feels like you're getting screwed over because there's like a cheating problem, right? Like is that really the best way to go about it? It probably works, but it kind of sucks for like all the legit people if they have to, do it 5 times instead of one.
Yeah, there are some different variants of this. The simple variant is like make it so that after each attempt you get one part of the quiver. So you get like the strap and then the holster, and then you get like some extra details and things. And so it would feel like you're actually working towards it. You don't just get nothing. You don't just get a number. You actually get something. And then the alternate route would actually be to drop the quiver in a base form and upgrade it, which I really like the idea of. And they haven't done this for many other things in game, if anything. So you would get like a base quiver level 1 and upgrade it over time, and it becomes like the detail becomes a bit more intricate. The bonus, the strength bonus, the accuracy bonus like increases with each amount. And so you're actually getting a usable item that has the effect of storing 2 types of ammo that you can further upgrade. And I think that idea is like fantastic because people love upgrading stuff. And that serves the same purpose.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think the way you describe those two ideas, even if they're pretty much effectively the same thing as just doing it 5 times. I think that is a much better way to go about it.
Mhm.
Like, even, I'm not a game dev, but I would assume like it feels much better when you get 1/4 of the drop or 1/5 of the drop instead of, you know, nothing. It also feels like less private servery, right? Like, it feels like
Mhm.
it makes a lot more sense that way. There's definitely a better way to go about implementing that kind of thing.
Yeah, this point I'm very curious on, because this is such a big reward, and it's not going to fall as far as like Inferno level. Well, maybe it will, but we don't know how hard it's going to fall as far as like incentivizing players to push themselves and try and get there. But I think for all of us here, like, it's such an interesting part of the game is like becoming good and actually getting to a stage where you can try out for these things. Because a lot of players are really casual nowadays, and old school has such a great casual player base. It's not a bad thing, but very few players really want to like try and improve to get there in the first place. So I don't know. I like more and more these things that incentivize players to do that. I think some people take it the wrong way, like, you just want to lock it to prevent cape selling, and it's a side effect, but it's not the main reason, I guess.
I have the perfect solution actually. So
Mhm.
remember how we were talking about unique mechanics? You should just make it so that the Colosseum is super difficult, and then there's also this mechanic where your camera is constantly spinning, so that way anyone doing it on Parsec is gonna have the worst
Oh
time ever.
god! So you make the content as horrible as possible, it makes you throw up, and then no one will sell caves.
Yeah, make it anti-Parsec design.
Anti-parsec.
Oh, on top of that, we can have our inventory moving.
Yeah.
Just
Spinning.
like a DVD screener. So it's
Spinning inventory, flashing black and white screen.
All your
Yeah.
items just jumping around, switching spots.
It's like anti-game dev stream. Oh god. Some funny ideas. And there might be something out there that's like, you know, borderline realistic here that could work, but yeah, I find it hard to think that any person on Parsec will do anything, but, well, they'll probably still do it, but yeah.
Yeah, if the money's there, then people
Yep.
will adapt.
So it is. Right, we're going to move on from Colosseum and have a look at some more just general questions and general things that are of interest right now. Some just in general, some to me, and if you guys have anything else, then chip them in as well. Oh, wait, hang on, one more last thing, glory system. We like vaguely touched on it, but I think we might have done it, but we'll do it anyway. We'll do it again. So, glory system is about your PB plus your lack of mistakes equals higher glory. Personally, I'm a huge fan.
I like it. I played it. I played a game that had a very similar system to this.
Mm-hmm. What's the name of it, or what's the thing itself?
Oh, the game? Oh, it was a mobile game.
Oh, okay. Just like a similar
But they-
system, though.
Yeah, a very similar system.
Does it feel good though? Like, does it make sense?
What do you call it? Yes and no, but like, because this one had like weekly rotations, and
Oh yeah, and
this
anything
was kind
weekly
of like
is.
overwhelming. But aside from that, not having a weekly rotation, I think it is a really good idea.
Yeah, I'm not personally not a crazy fan of anything daily based in old school, really. But I don't think there's any plans for that for Colosseum either.
Well, definitely having that would kind of like be concerning for the game.
Yeah, at the very least. What do you think?
I mean, it sounds cool on paper. I just hope they implement it right. Like, cause like I mean,
Yeah.
you look at something like, let's take LMS rank. That metric is so completely pointless and reflects like very little about how good
Mhm.
someone actually is at the minigame. And I feel like your glory is supposed to represent how good you are, right? So like,
Yeah,
I just
totally.
hope that they do it so that like it's, I don't know, an accurate representation of what they're trying to show. Like I don't want to have like two people at the same glory who are like
Completely different.
clearly one. Yeah. Like,
yeah. I was reading about something so interesting today that applies to this so directly. It's called the Cobra effect. You guys heard of it?
Never.
No.
Okay, so the Cobra effect is this stemmed from a place where there were too many cobras like attacking people in the wild, and so the government's like, guys, if you bring us the head of a cobra, we'll pay you. And then all the townspeople are like, shit, that's great, let's raise cobras. So they just like start breeding cobras. And then the government's like, you guys are cheating the system. And then they stop buying the cobras. What do the people do? They release them. And now you have cobras everywhere, defeating the purpose. And this is a thing where like the glory system might have the cobra effect in the same way, where you're going to have, you know, the goal is to incentivize players to improve by going faster and making less mistakes. But unless the system's designed really carefully, what counts as a mistake might be the downfall, where players are suddenly like taking their time to very carefully and intricately avoid the one thing that like matters, and instead you're getting really bad players who are cheesing systems in play to, you know, to try and basically have like a decently fast run and no quote unquote mistakes. And you won't be improving as a player by doing that. And so it's like creating this like negatively, you know, it's a negative effect overall, despite actually trying to do that. I thought that was quite an interesting parallel how that can potentially happen here if they don't define a mistake very clearly.
I actually have heard of the Cobra effect. Now that you described it, I just never heard it being called that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's sort of like a crazy amount of examples for it, but this in particular sounds like it could be applied to Glory System.
Yeah, especially because like there are rewards locked behind glory thresholds, right? So I do think you're right that people will figure out exactly what they need to do to reach specific thresholds, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that the combination of like no mistakes and speed are ones that kind of work well together to prevent the kind of like issue you're talking about. Because I would imagine that it's going to be hard to like quote unquote cheese it, like you said, right? If you also have to go quick.
And maybe the combined effect of those two things is that it is in fact fine.
Mm-hmm.
If everything is time dependent ultimately, or if time counts more to glory, then you're at the mercy of that and you can't just, you know. But for example, maybe what if wearing Justy and rolling zeros on the player counts as not taking a hit? Then players might just take tank gear, right? And you can still do the run fairly fast. That's the problem I'm like foreseeing is what if they just forget about Justy or don't take into account one little thing. And on release it's like within 2 days, hundreds of thousands of players are going to figure out what counts as a mistake. Then you're screwed, but you know, who knows?
Man, I hope we don't get a Justy.
It's scary, isn't it? It's scary.
Yeah, what do you call it? So if people want to cheese, for the most part, you're not going to benefit in like a faster time because you do have to cheesing, like you take away like a bunch of aspects just to make everything easier, but you're not really like taking on the challenge itself in a way. So for the most part, like I hope they don't have anything where cheese becomes the best way to go.
Right. Yeah. It should never be the best strategy. It should never be the one that comes out on top. It's okay to have it, I think, to an extent.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like part of the game, and you know, different gearing choices matter. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think realistically they just need to make it so that time matters a lot, right? Like that probably needs to be the biggest factor. Where it's like you want to go fast and you want to minimize mistakes rather than you want to make zero mistakes and try to do it as quick as possible.
I'd agree. I also think that time, like, it's really hard to. It's like as a speedrunner, we guys, I think. Well, we'll get onto this, but we've all done like some sort of level of speedrun, and it's really hard to push down time as you get towards like the more tick perfect times, because it's very easy to lose one tick, and that one tick means a lot more when you're trying to push fast times than slow times. Make sense? Like, for example, it's very easy to get a sub, let's say 60 Inferno, but the difference from shaving off like sub 60 to sub 50 is not that crazy, but the difference of shaving off like sub 50 to sub 50 sub 45 is ridiculous.
Right.
And it just becomes exponentially harder. So if you gate it like time wise, you choose a good threshold, and suddenly like it's so much harder to get to that level.
Right.
So yeah,
and I think there's also like the innate factor about going quick where you're already trying not to make mistakes, right? Like as long as the mistakes are considered like I hope it's not like some of the CAs where it's like, oh, perfect bloat, do bloat without getting hit by a fly, right? Like that's considered a mistake there, but like in a actual setting, like, is taking a fly really a mistake? Like,
Yeah, that's because sometimes you want to take. What if you want to take Avenge? Is that a mistake? What if you
right,
want to? What if you
exactly.
want to like change your pathing a bit because hiding behind the pillar might actually be the best course of action, or taking a hit here to deliver a faster finishing blow might be a better course of action. So there might be some limitations as to what's actually better, and you're forced into like a worse quote unquote route for time.
Right, right. That would be awkward. I think that would actually be frustrating.
It might be, yeah. I guess players are going to speedrun anyway, so there'll be a leaderboard, or
True.
some people will care very much about the actual fastest time and not the glory. And then other
True.
people are going to care much more for the glory, which is fine. There's like two different ways to play. It will be very interesting because old school has nothing, doesn't have a system like glory currently beyond like maybe PvP tracker. So right now everyone is hyper focused on time, and I'm curious to see if people will make the shift to caring about glory more than time. I think so personally, but I guess we'll have to wait to see.
Honestly, I don't know if I would imagine people shifting or if I imagine more of a situation where like a new sort of wave of people get into like doing glory runs. Like I feel like a lot of people who speedrun now might just end up like speedrunning Colosseum instead, whereas like a whole different wave of people will get into doing the glory stuff.
It might be. A lot of different disciplines for how players like to play kind of arise.
Mm-hmm.
I think speedrunning has had like such a good run, but like this is very on topic, right? You guys do some really interesting challenges, and people care way more about these interesting challenges, these hard challenges, than they do speedruns nowadays. They're more niche. They're more like they're seen as harder, I guess. And maybe that's what glory will be.
Yeah, I do think glory probably fits what I like in the game better, I would imagine. And I should speak for myself, but I would imagine Noobtype probably feels the same way.
Yeah. What do you call it?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. I think I'll like it too. But yeah.
Yeah, this other game played had like pretty much the same system as this. So, oh yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, well, it's good to know. We will something for when Colosseum releases at the end of the day. Okay, let's move on. That's all the Colosseum stuff. We might revisit it here and there, but this is like the next set of sort of just around the block questions. Anything really that has come to mind or anything that takes interest. The first one is about Scythe. Been coming up all over Reddit and in streams and chats and things. And it's due to I think the price of how T-Bow and Shadow have both risen to 1.5 bill. Shadow now falling a bit, but T-Bow still maintaining value. Scythe right now is approximately 550 mil. So it's hovering around there, maybe increasing a bit, but it's nearly 1/3 of the price of the other two mega rares. So the question is, should Jagex try to either buff the Scythe, or design more content around it, or something else? Does it even need the help to begin with? Does it really matter? Is it okay for these items to be like low price? Or is T-Bow Shadow overvalued, perhaps?
You want me this one part?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Oh, you wait, were you asking me if I wanted?
Yeah, I was asking
Dude,
you.
I mean,
Yeah.
this question is just Addy's agenda, right? Let's be
Yes,
honest.
it is.
Like I don't think they should buff the scythe because I think the scythe, the way it's designed, if you buff it, it becomes like a really slippery slope, right? Like just because of the mechanic of like what is it, the three max hit, or sorry, the 3 hits with the max hits divided. That is like a scary thing to apply a buff to because like we always see it, right? Whenever we get a strength bonus upgrade, like scythe kind of can get like a huge buff if it reaches a certain max hit threshold. And the same thing with when we got the Bellator ring, right? Like the 20 accuracy from Bellator, just it works so good with how the like the triple hit spots work with Scythe, right? So I
Yeah.
feel like buffing Scythe is kind of like it could be like a serious balancing issue because Scythe might become like really OP at like certain places, whereas it might not get buffed like that much at others. Like I think like people were suggesting that like accuracy buff kind of thing to Scythe, and it was like, oh, it helps out at Duke by like 40%, and then it helps out at Serb by like 7% or something. It's just, I don't really think that's the way they should go about it. I really think all we need to do is just wait, because I think there's gonna be a slash boss that's 3x3,
Mhm.
and like we just gotta wait for it to drop. Like I'm sure that they're gonna make slash content, right? Every style has kind of had their turn, I feel. Like way back in the day, it was like stab was like good, then Tob came out and like it was like, oh, slash is a big thing. Then Nightmare came out, suddenly Crush was a big thing, and then Toa came out, and like now it's like, okay, it's stab again. I think Scythe will see its day just naturally at some point.
Any thoughts, Noobtype?
I think Orb put it best.
Mhm.
Like, there's not enough content around Scythe, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I more or less, I'm in the same boat. I think that it will eventually see its time, regardless of whether it's an immediate buff and we just see it at some point in the next year or two, or if there's content in like 3 or 4. I don't really think that Raids 4 or other content is going to push out high-level mega rares or any weapon that will devalue T-Bow Shadow Scythe. And so, as long as that content comes around, again, it will see its day eventually. But I do also think there's value in making sure that mega rares remain expensive. I do think that, personally, I think T-Bow is too expensive. I think Scythe is undervalued, and I think that Shadow is becoming closer to the bill mark, which is like a bit more reasonable. And for the sake of like having a balanced economy and making sure that content is still worth doing, like for example, if Scythe drops to 200 mil, do you really want to do Tob anymore? Maybe not. So there's some incentive there and some good reasoning for keeping it at a decent level. But maybe 500 is fine. Like a Vernic price makes up the rest. I don't really know.
I agree with you that there is an importance with trying to keep certain items at a certain value for sure. Because it was like you just said with do people want to still do Tob? Like I saw a picture earlier today, I think G Challenge posted it, and he was showing like how much each item contributes to the GP an hour for the content. And it was like vials of blood contribute 1.5 times more to the GP an hour of Tob than Rapier does, which
That's
that like
great.
blew my mind, right? Like that just doesn't feel right at all.
Yeah,
I'll see if I can
that's
find the picture for you
that's really
guys.
interesting. If you get it, I'll try and put it in the vid. There's a point where even if Scythe was like more expensive, like an Avernic, so even if Scythe is like 250 and Avernic is like 50, even if it makes up the majority of the Tob loot, it still wouldn't feel good elsewhere. And I think that a lot of the contributing factor to people getting into Tob, or the lack of it, is because Scythe is cheap. And even though you're making good money from Tob through Avernics and whatnot, it just doesn't feel quite right. That graphic you're showing says that Avernic makes up more money than Scythe, which
Yeah,
I'm a bit surprised about, but
by a good margin as well.
Jeez.
yeah.
I mean, Avernica is really expensive right now, right? It's like 100 mil, I think.
Yeah, it's going up even higher. That's crazy. Well, this is a side topic, but Avernic hitting 100 mil and Dex hitting nearly 40 mil right now is a really cool indicator that I think showcases how many people are getting into PVM from TOA. This like knock-on effect, like a year on. People are getting into PVM. They're making money. They're buying these things as like progression for their account. And overall, that's amazing in general. But Avernic does a particularly good job of showcasing that. Just remarkable that it's 100 mil.
Yeah, you're right for sure. It is pretty cool to see, and it was like pretty almost immediately after Toa that it like started rising, right?
Yeah, it's a crazy effect. But I don't know. More people are getting into Top now again. I'm sure some of the TOA people who are like brought up on raids 3 as their first raid are trying Chambers and trying Top and getting interested. But yeah, maybe leaving Top to last. Who knows? Trying some Cox. Stay at Cox for 2 years, then Scythe will go back in price when they want to do Top. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see a reason to switch from doing Toa to Tob because the GP an hour is just not there, right? Like
No. I mean, TOB maybe approaches, what, 10 mil, maybe? And TOA is like 15 happily, something like that. It's still like a good amount, but...
I mean,
yeah,
it looks from that picture, it looks like 7.5. But I mean, who knows what the
sure.
actual rates are from that picture? So, like
Yeah.
the efficiency. I mean,
Right, next question. I'll post this one in chat. So, Old School has a really big difference between the average player and the top players. And the question is, do you think it's beneficial to try and create content like TOA that's highly accessible in order to bridge this gap? Does this really matter? Does it help anyone, like, long term? And following on from this, like, how would you increase the skill of players? And again, does this really matter? Like, you know, who actually cares if this is the case? Are there benefits to doing this? We touched a little bit on this with like the Colosseum stuff, getting people to do repeat KCs and TOA, but yeah. Who would like to take this?
I delegate Noobtype to go first.
Oh.
Go.
So I do think like making having the idea of making content available to also cater casual players is really good for the game. Of course, like it's also like good for the other side, the high level area. So something like that, it will definitely draw attention to like probably even like people who don't even play the game that have an eye on RuneScape.
You mean as in like trying to find an entry point for them, or being
Yeah.
very like understandable, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is something that RS3 does very badly, I think, is that a lot of the content you see from RS3, it's so hotkey based that when I'm looking at it, I don't understand what's going on. I've got no clue. But when you're watching TOA, especially if it's like a fairly early, fairly like low invocation raid, it's really obvious what the player's mouse is doing. And outside of hotkey usage, you can follow the gameplay, which makes it very relatable. So it's not just accessible for like the players who are getting into it, but like even for players who want to look up to raid level from the outside perspective, new players, it gets them like interested. It makes them understand it easier.
Dude, I feel like that's something I noticed without like actually like consciously making a note of it. Cause I remember like last year in like October or something, I made an RS3 Ironman just to play for like a bit of fun, right? I could not get into the combat, and whenever like somebody would like link me a video of anyone doing any boss, I could not tell what the fuck was going on,
No.
man. Because they have like 7 action bars, and it's like I can't tell which ability is even activating at a given time. It's so much more apparent with like things just almost purely happening with your mouse, right? Like,
Yeah.
back to the original question. Um, I think it's beneficial, but I truthfully do not like the way that those players were incentivized. And I think it might be like really good for Jagex, because like that's probably their like most successful update yet, right? But I think I just don't like how the game was impacted by, like, I'm thinking specifically about Toa, right? I don't like that we have to like kind of wave like this carrot in front of like the noses of like the like newer players to get into PVM, and like, oh my god, I'm struggling with my words, but like I don't like that we have to incentivize them with like a huge amount of reward and GP, right? I feel like players would naturally try to improve and get into PVM, like if the difficulty just kind of, like the difficulty of the content scaled with how rewarding it is, right? Like, so
Right.
like Top, for example, we just said was like 8 mil an hour or whatever, and Toa being 15 or 16, obviously at the higher invocations. But like, I don't know. It feels like I don't like, if I were a newer player and I wanted to get into PVM, I think Toa is the first place I would look, but it also feels like almost like the last place I would look to, because it's like I don't see why I would need to switch and diversify like my skills to other content when I can just sit at Toa.
It's
Maybe Yosa Next. Like Next is ridiculous amount of GP an hour, and it's like
yeah.
not difficult, right?
It's a very unnatural cycle compared to other games. You wouldn't expect the latest high-end content release to also be the first thing you do. Maybe that's not. I don't think that's so much an issue, but it feels a bit strange. There's not like this build up to it that you have to go through. Like I got to go through God Wars, and then I got to go through Slayer bosses, and then I might be ready. It's like no, you just do TOA. That's a bit strange.
Yeah, you do TOA and you stay at TOA.
Yeah, you just straight up stay there. And I had like really a lot of trouble putting this into words before, but I think a lot of what this hinges upon is how much money you get for the effort, which you touched on, is like you need different levels of content that have appropriate reward for the effort you put in, ultimately, which is like balancing in general. But a lot of the longevity of the content depends on two things, which is the amount of players who are coming up and into it, compared to the amount of leaving players, I guess, or players who are like done with the content, and then the actual rarity of the items as well. Because we're seeing this now with TOA, where because it's so accessible, and because maybe the rarities aren't quite so balanced, you're gonna get like Masuri right now is dropping like a proper stone. Fang is 24 mil right now. It's below 25 now. That's just going down.
Jeez.
Yeah, and eventually it's gonna hit like, well, potentially not ALK price, but very damn close to ALK price over the next year or so. And I think the only way to counteract this is to bring out new content that players are going to divert to. So there's a smaller amount of players still farming that. It's a very interesting sort of dynamic there. But ultimately, you need like another competitively good effort to reward thing coming out as well. And TOA might have broken that system a bit because of how easy it is to get this loot, because of how much you can farm. But I guess it doesn't matter as long as the GP incentive's there.
I think another factor that sort of ruined that in Toa is them changing the invocation levels to make it like easier to access higher levels. And then I don't think they even bothered changing the rewards.
No, stay the
as
same.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, that's it.
They changed it once, but yeah, you're right. And like, it became easier to farm, but they didn't adjust the rewards appropriately.
Because I remember when they released the Fan Kit, they dropped a bunch of levels or readjusted levels to make it like slightly easier to get.
Mhm.
Then the week after, I remember this. So like during the first week, there were only like around 10 Fan Kit completions. Then the week after, they made a huge change in levels to where you can easily get like a mere like 40 levels.
Yeah.
And that's when like everyone the rate of Fan Kits like started like swarming into the game because everything got because it got easier to obtain. But I also think is it's kind of hypocritical for them to do because I originally thought the invocation system, if you want to make the raid harder, you add on more restrictions to make it harder on yourself. But instead, they made stuff easier on the higher end.
Yeah, it's a bit backwards. They might have just considered it to be too hard, or less people, not enough people considering it's something to go for. It's like, as you said, 10 players in the first week, that is nothing compared to what it probably should have been. I think like on average we see 6 or 7 Infernal Capes enter the game per day, even nowadays, on average. Something like that. But if it was like that, you think it might even be more, right? But I think that's quite a lot. That's like completely new players, so maybe realistically like up to 5 non-buyers who are like get a cape a day. Still a good amount.
Right.
But yeah, if Fan Kits was as hard as it was on release, it'd be like Blood Torva level, I think. Very similar, at least. Maybe that's a bit too much, but I don't know. Let's move to the next question. And that is, do you guys play other games or have any particular hobbies outside of old school? Do you type with the mobile games? Pause.
I used to play a lot of mobile Ring Link games.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them being Citus, what do you call it? I don't remember the other names. Oh god. Citus, Demo, and then there's a Japanese one where it had a spinning circle. I forget what it's called. I only played that for like a month. Then I also play a League.
League?
That-
Oh god.
League of Legends.
Oh
Well, I don't
no.
actually play it, but I only play with friends nowadays.
Yeah.
Then I also play a fighting game.
Oh
that-
cool.
This one isn't popular, but it's a Gundam fighting game.
hmm
So there's a outside of Japan, it's a small player base, but in Japan, it's super popular in arcades.
Yeah. Really interesting. Like the different cultures have like such great sort of significance on certain games, and then other cultures are like, nah, don't like it, not interested.
Then I play a racing game called Wagon Midnight. Uh, when I was little, I used to play it a lot in arcades, but nowadays I play like every like once a month with my brother.
That was like a childhood game still that's still like relevant today. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Similar to old school.
Mhm.
But yeah, a lot of mobile
But-
stuff, which is quite interesting.
Then this other mobile game, it was based on the anime called Bleach.
Oh yeah.
And one of their games, so as I was saying with the glory system, they released a very similar system to the glory system. But the only thing I hated, or most of the player base hated, was it was like a weekly rotation. So like roles changed here and there,
Yeah.
and like
I think a lot of mobile games do that a lot of the time.
yeah, they have
Like-
that to like
Yeah,
grab money.
pretty much. Yeah. I found them to be like really well built for the most part. They kind of have like this really good system a lot of the time for the newer ones that just they understand what the consumer like wants to play, and then they just lock it behind a paywall or rotate it and stuff. But honestly, mobile games are still like really popping. They're still really popular. Some still really fun ones out there.
Yep.
What?
Well, I was just thinking of what Noobtype was saying, because I remember I can't remember where I heard it, but I think you and Sido were talking about a mobile game that you played, and you were like dominant on that as well. I just thought that was pretty cool. I don't know which one it was, but I think it's pretty cool that you were owning on that game too.
It's called Bleach Brave Souls.
Oh, so is that the one with the glory system then?
Yeah.
Oh, cool, cool.
They've long removed the system because it was like unhealthy to players.
That's good to
you, man.
That's good to hear.
If you were the one. Noobtype was out here sweating every week trying to get his rank 1. That's cool though. Also, yeah, like I don't know. I feel like arcade culture where I live in Denmark, is like not a thing. But I visited Japan and it was like insane how like big arcade culture is there. It was really cool. For me, I have like the most typical RuneScape nerd response, which is no. I do not
I
have.
play RuneScape only.
Yes. I sit and I
Yep.
play RuneScape. I mean, I really casually play like some Smash Bros with my brothers. I've like not even played like online or competitively ever. I probably have like a decent amount of hours. I'm like not terrible at the game, but I would never consider myself like a real player of that
Mhm.
game. But I mean, I've had phases where I've been into it, especially like as a spectator. I used to be kind of into watching like Smash Bros. Melee and like keeping up with like all the things that are going on in the competitive scene, like like who the best players are and watching different tournaments and stuff. But I don't know, I wouldn't say lost interest, but just not as into it as I used to be, I guess.
I was really into that during Smash 4, and it was still like they're still like revealing characters and stuff. So I was also playing that during that time.
Smash 4 was pretty fun.
Which is Smash 4? Is that the Wii U?
Yeah, Smash 4 was on Wii U and
Oh.
then Ultimate came out on Switch.
Ultimate, yeah, I was playing to Ultimate. I thought
Oh, okay.
Smash 4 Ultimate.
But both had like the DLC waves of like their
Yeah.
characters.
I've definitely played. I'm sure I must have played Smash 4 if it was the main one on Wii. But yeah, also had a blast on it. I think Smash is still doing great today, competitive scene wise too, which is cool. It's not
Yeah, I
like
think
it's not getting old.
they have a really tight like culture, I guess, cause especially like because when you consider the most like I don't know if it's more popular than Ultimate, but like the biggest or I think it's the biggest like game they have is the second one, which is like from 2002, and it's still
Oh,
popping and still going.
Melee.
Yeah,
Yeah, Melee.
which is
And I
kind of
want that.
crazy. Like people are still playing that, and they're still like furthering the meta, and people are still super into it. It makes me happy to see, I guess, because I guess like that's kind of like also part of my childhood.
And
Yeah.
Melee has like the most like hard to play mechanics compared to the other ones.
Yeah. People are breaking their hands at playing that game just because of all the tech. It's kind of crazy.
There's some really fun tech for I forget what is it, like Tetris tech? It's my favorite game for like having crazy like patterns, like tap, like different tap patterns and stuff. I think it's Tetris. Maybe I'm going crazy. Like players have started like moving their controller instead of their hands to like wobble the
Yeah,
controller
it's
against their
like
hands.
yeah.
I don't know what the tech
They
is
do.
called, but it's awesome.
I remember it's called like wobbling. I'm not sure, but they like tap with their three fingers
Yeah,
in a like a rolling pattern
it's called rolling. It's called
to
rolling. Yeah,
roll.
called rolling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you do that to get like very fast inputs.
yeah. It's so interesting to me that that's even a thing, but yeah, it goes to show like even the oldest games are just getting like innovated even today. Super cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, speaking of which, like, I was also like pretty interested in watching people speedrun Super Mario 64, and I think that game is having like a revolution now as well because I don't know how much you guys are aware of it, but like there's this trick that people thought was going to be TAS only for a long time that has suddenly kind of become humanly viable. So like all the top level runners are now like in the running for world record as long as they can pull off that skip, which is like it's pretty cool to see, right? Like a bunch of people are getting world record left and right. There's someone I know who plays RuneScape. Maybe you guys know him, Morski or Gothic Logic. Who's getting like some crazy PBs. I think he got like a top 20 or top 10 time or something.
That's crazy for a game that
He's able to pull
competitive.
it off.
Yeah.
It's insane. Yeah, it was super cool to see. And he's PB'd like 3 times, right? Because like when you have like such a big skip that suddenly becomes viable, it's like any run can turn into like a
Yeah.
PB run.
Like even 5 seconds matters massively for that kind of thing, and I assume it's maybe even more than that.
Oh yeah,
But
it's a lot of time.
yeah,
I think double-digit seconds, if not more. I'm not super sure, but yeah.
I love how 10 seconds is considered like insane, but yeah, I guess so. I guess it is, yeah. In Super Mario. And this is a run back to old school about this, but like it's so crazy to me that like players are playing to that standard in other games, other speedruns, other just like finding these ridiculously tricky or particularly intensive and like just crazy methods that you have to put a ton of hours into practice. And I don't know. I don't think the ceiling, particularly not so much like the players. Like a lot of players are really insane at old school, but the mechanics aren't really testing them at the current time. There's not, you know, like for example, zero tick Leviathan is the closest we've ever had to something being nearly impossible but still doable. And I know it's a bit of a problem with the tick system that we have, but I would love to see some challenges, some more mechanics that maybe even like Leviathan are optional to get into. You don't have to like go to zero tick if you don't want to, but if you want to, you get some massive benefit for doing it. I don't know, like zero tick, not zero tick, but like 1 tick reactive wardens, shit like that. I don't know. I love so much about old school if they could do that. And I think they got the, you know, they could do it, and it's just about whether players would want to try and get to that level. Do you think it's even possible? Because like outside, I don't know if they're gonna want to like redo Leviathan now. Feels like they might have been like, it's a bit too much, if anything.
I don't know if they would. I feel like, if anything, they won't redo it just because they don't want to like copy and paste like the exact same idea, right?
Yeah, maybe not the press stuff.
Oh, dude, there's a plugin that I forget his full name because it's a bunch of numbers, but I refer to him as 929. He made a plugin where it like creates this like little mini game for you to play where you
Oh
have to
yeah.
like reactively click the squares. That's
Mhm.
super fun, and that's like the same React timing as Leviathan. Like you can configure it so that it's like a zero tick React kind of deal, and it like
Yeah.
tracks your streak. That's super fun to play, and maybe they could
Oh,
do something like that.
There's
what's it called? I want to try that.
Let me see. I think it's called. It is called Tick Dance. Tick Dance on Plugin Hub.
there you go,
Oh.
fellas. Tick Dance on Plugin Hub.
All right.
I'm gonna try that as well.
It's really fun, and you can configure it to like include switches and like interacting for a tick as well. So you can like get your alt and like switch and attack it on the same tick and stuff, and then back to reactive movement. It's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really cool.
it's interesting.
it.
They on I think it's on HDOS. This got brought up recently. There's like or rather in Quest Helper, even on RuneLight, I think the capability exists to add local NPCs. And you can so on HDOS there's actually a quest you can do locally with NPCs and everything. It's nothing to do with the actual main game, but you can still replay it. It's really interesting because like, what if players could just create their own content? Seriously, like, what if we just like have an open playing field, like even your POH, like it's a ton of area, and you just add NPCs, you just add effects, and we could do that ourselves at some point. It's not like too far fetched at this point.
Yeah, I saw that earlier today. I thought that was insane.
Yeah.
And I mean, like it when you consider I think his name is Secret Gnome, made like that creators kit plugin. Like that almost feels like half the work, right? Because you can
Yeah.
like spawn anything anywhere and make it do animations and stuff. So it feels like we're not that far off. Like someone could even just make like a custom Zuck fight, which is like a perfect simulation you can
Yeah.
do in your POH, right?
Totally.
That'd be pretty sick to see.
So many games on Steam particularly have creative workshops where it is like the game itself, and then you just break it, or you add your own you add your own flair, you add your own like fight basically. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility, but I do think it would require a little bit from Jagex to push it, and I'm very curious to see if they would even be interested. But maybe that's another big topic to tackle at some point. But yeah, limitless potential on those for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Let me move to the next question. That was a long one. This one is, what was the big push for you personally to become good at old school and or just games in general? Was there a particular game that you really enjoyed that you thought was like, you wanted to get good? And like my example for this is Modern Warfare 3, the original. I sucked at games my entire life up until that point in time where I met Modern Warfare 3, and I just felt like it was so much fun to become good that I focused on doing it. I tried to do it, and over the course of the few years that I played it, I became a really good player. And that kind of like idea and that kind of the way I approached other games kind of stemmed from that experience, I think. I'm not like incredible at every game I play, but I'm like in the top tier for most things where I try to apply myself competitively, and I lend a lot of that to that experience I had. But did you guys have this moment, or was there something else entirely different? Like, why are you so damn good at old school, both of you?
Go Noobtype, this is all you. This is all you.
I don't think I'm that good.
Others
there
beg
it
to
is.
differ.
There it is.
Yeah, others beg to differ, but I mean, you're still like the top 0.00001%. Like you're in the top 100 players mechanically, and the challenges you put out, no one is trying to even replicate them, let alone like compete. So I don't think many of the really good players ever are like super arrogant about it. Like, yeah, dude, no one can beat me. But you are up there for sure. But regardless, even if you don't think you are, like, do you? I mean, was there another point in another game? Like you said, you're good at like other games, like the Bleach one, for example. You were like competitive at Bleach as well.
Yeah, that game was competitive, mainly because like people, it was super their high level community was super toxic.
Oh, really?
So I wanted to shut them up.
That's really funny. That's a great reason. But that's like
Because
motivation, right? You know.
yeah,
Mhm.
I wasn't really going to push that game,
Mhm.
but they got me involved in like a bunch of drama, so that's what pushed me.
That's a
Then
pretty funny reason.
during around 8 years ago, I wanted to become a pro player for League, but my parents didn't let me.
Hmm.
Then for RuneScape, uh, so I wanted to become good after. I wanted to try to push my limits through Twisted League. So one thing I was proficient at or was Chambers and CM. So my goal was to be the first person to do a Deathless CM in Twisted League, but Wooks beat me to it. uh, so I remember that day when he was grinding for a whip. He got it like 8 minutes in to grinding Abyssal Demons, and I also needed a whip. But I started a day before his whip grind. Then it took me like 3 days to get mine. So, and on the same day he got his whip, he sent the CM immediately, and he got the completion. It's like damn. And then it took me another 2 days to get the whip, and I did send it at the same day.
Mm-hmm. The
So
RNG
then,
RNG whip thing, man. But
yeah,
Dude, did you say it took you 3 days to get a whip?
yeah,
What
in League,
happened?
it was Twisted League. The rates weren't boosted.
yeah.
Oh my
Just the
god.
league's rates
Yeah.
were changed. There
You
were
still
still
must
normal
have gone
rates.
like super dry, no? If you spent 3 days.
Yeah, 3 days.
God, man, that sucks.
This is relatable for me, but I'm not going to tell my story. I think people know it by now.
Then that was like my first push ever.
It's a cool one though. I've not heard anyone quote a league in particular to be like the driving force. That's a cool one though. Mr. Port?
Well, first I just want to say I loved your story, Noobtype, of the mobile game. Like, there's no better motivator
Yeah.
than proving some people wrong, right? That's cool.
Yep.
Um, uh, for me, I don't know. I think I have this thing where I always feel like I'm maybe just not good enough and not where I want to be, so I'm like kind of just never satisfied. Like I feel like even the challenge we just did when I was watching the stream, I was watching noob type submissions and I was like, oh damn man, he's so much better. Look at his clicks, they're so clean. Like I wish I could click like that, right? I just I wanna get like that. I wanna be clicking like that or performing like that. And I think that goes like all the way back for me. Like I think the people I watch are like a really big influence on what I want to do in the game. So like watching Wooks like way back in the day, watching Exact, dude, when Exact went live with his 46, I think, Combat Inferno, that was like crazy for me, like watching him
I
do that
watched that
stuff.
too.
Dude, I was losing it. I literally like I went downstairs to my older brother. Like he hadn't played the game for years. I was like, dude, you gotta see this. This guy's at Zuck. He's got like 6 majors up. It's insane. Um, yeah, no, I don't know. Like that stuff really, I don't know, struck me. I was like, oh man, I want to do that stuff too. And like it keeps happening, right? Like I see other people playing, and I just want to do stuff like that. I wanna be good like that. Um, there's also like this famous Bodhi clip where he says, like, if you only play RuneScape, like, are you sure you want to be like dog shit at the game? And I was like, damn, man, that's me. He's calling me out, dude. I only play RuneScape. Oh,
That's one of my favorite
so
all-time buddy clips. That is.
it's a good one,
I
yeah.
say that a lot as well to people who are just like exclusive RuneScape players and are just like, eh. And it's a good one though. It makes sense to me at least. I think it resonates with people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so like there's that, and then also just my friends. I feel like I got lucky with who I wound up like making friends with, and they all were or are like players who uh, are really good at the game, and I feel like they also influence me to want to be good, right? Because I
Yeah.
remember like when Year of Tob came out, like I was like really bad at the game, and I was raiding with my friends, and like they're all super good, and it's like, oh, I don't want to be the leech, right? Like I wanna get as good as my friends are, you know.
Yeah, it's a big one. Community and like your crowd, your own personal bubble, how it expands, who it contains. A big one for sure. We didn't touch on this at all, but we can add leagues to a little bit of the convo as well, since we touched on it slightly. But I guess we'll do that. There's a few more questions in this section, but let's go back to leagues real quick to circle back in. So, are you guys going to be playing League?
Yes,
Yes,
for sure.
Noobtype play?
Maybe.
Maybe 50-50. Well, how come? Just like not interested or no particular goal?
My schedule might be like super busy again,
Okay.
but maybe if it's not, then I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, just dependent on IRL. I get it.
Yeah,
Fair enough. What about the routing? Are we going to leak any routing?
rooting. I have nothing planned.
What?
Dude, I feel like I almost feel guilty about this every day. I'm like, oh, dude, leagues is coming up. There's only like X amount of days left. I should really come up with a plan.
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, I actually don't know what I want to do.
Just wing it.
Dude, at this point, I'm thinking I might just end up winging it. Like to look at the relics like the hour before and then decide what I want to do. Because I can't even pick like what like attack style I want to do, and like obviously the regions are probably going to be based off what attack style I want to do, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this big push to like, oh, maybe I should go mage because like Shadow's so broken, and then it's like, but do I really enjoy using mage? Maybe I want to use melee. It's like easier to use, it's free, more like versatile. I don't know. I just can't, I cannot make up my mind, and because like I don't have that like starting like decision, I feel like I can't like make a route or like a plan from there. As much as I want to have like an in-depth plan, I don't have one yet.
Yeah, basically wing it and see where it goes. Like, I mean, that's what I'm doing. All I know is I'm taking Mauritania. I'm gonna go get a scythe, and then I'm taking Kurin. I'm gonna go get a T-bow, and then I'm gonna take whatever else suits my fancy and click Inferno. That's my route, but barely a route, of course. But yeah.
And I was so sure you were gonna say, and I'm picking desert and I'm gonna get a shadow.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
I just don't think you could
Gotta
use all
put it
three
real.
styles. I don't think there will be enough relics to make use of all three. You got to specialize in one and have a secondary backup, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Probably. I mean,
some-
that's kind of how it was the first time around,
Yeah.
right? Like everyone was running melee and then they're like mage just sucked and range was like, if you need range, it's there.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are taking desert this time purely because shadow exists and they haven't had to play around with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2-3 tick shadow plus whatever else it is.
Oh,
I'm gonna enjoy
that
it.
sounds insane.
Yeah, it does. Like I don't know. I don't think we're getting 2 tick, but 3 tick very likely. But I don't know. They're gonna pull something out the bag, I'm sure.
If they do the half attack rate thing, I hope they find a way to make it actually half. Because, like, the whole, like, I remember in the original Trailblazers, like, Scythe actually was kind of shit, and Rapier was, like, the big item, just because of, like, the rounding up, right? Like, 3-tick Scythe versus 2-tick Rapier.
Yeah.
So I hope they have, like, they make it, like, 3-tick, 2-tick, 3-tick, 2-tick for the 5-tick weapons or something.
Interesting idea. I hope they just make it 2 tick personally. They just like ask
Oh,
for it.
yeah, or that.
Here you go, just have the 2 tick weapon. Let's go crazy.
Yeah.
Some like ultra relic that like combined. Like maybe a really cool idea is like if you have 3 melee relics, then you get a 2 tick weapon. So it like plays into the power a bit more. I don't know. There's loads of ways, I'm sure. But yeah, I just want my. I never got to experience. I still don't have a T-bow on League. I've never had one. I've never had a mega rare on League. I don't think. Just not lucky, but it'd be really fun to try them out. Right, let's move on to the last 2 questions here. Let me post this in the chat. So, question is, both of you were top 10 to Blood Torva, and I believe both of you started late due to time zones, and especially Noobtype. You like apparently you did like 3 of the bosses really quickly, and in a really short time frame, like 2 to 3 hours, something like that. Correct me if it's not quite right.
It's 3 hours, I think.
3 hours to get the 3 bosses. Okay.
Yeah.
So the big question is, you reckon you would have completed Blood Torva faster than Sync if you were simply there from release moment? Or were you looking at strats? Were you looking at, when you wake up and you're there, it's like, I can see how people are doing this. I'm getting experience. But what was your route and how did you think about it? And you guys reckon you could have done it faster? Because I'm sure the answer is yes.
Doing it on release, I don't think I'd be able to, but
Hmm.
prior to that, I was like super busy with RL. So
Yeah.
and I thought they were going to release the Awakened variants next week.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll just continue on with like my RL stuff. But then when I heard the announcement that's coming in like the next day, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I didn't I barely had like any experience on these bosses. So uh during during release, oh, prior to that, I only had like around 4 hours of like experience and like figuring out what to do. Then I tried to stay up for restate, but that got delayed.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a nap. And then that ended up being a couple of hours of sleep.
That's really
I'm like,
rough. Like,
wait, how
yeah.
late am I? When did they release this?
I do think for really big things like maybe they didn't consider it that big, but I think a lot of the endgame player base considers it really big. They should probably have like a very set time. As fun as it was to like just be there and be like, oh dude, they're up, what the heck, let's go. It would be a bit better to give us a solid date and a time.
Yeah.
But I think honestly there must have been a lot of players in that similar position who just weren't playing at the right time. At work, busy, didn't take time off, wrong time zone. And it's not to dispute the fact that Sync like did insanely well, but I think there must have been a solid like maybe 10, 15 players who could have given him a run for his money. That's what I think anyway. But there's okay, like as always, there's like 50, 100 players who are all insane and they can all get the same achievement. It just comes down to how you route it, how you play. What about you? Easy rank one?
No, not at all. I think I didn't even miss that much, I don't think, but in regards to them starting it out of nowhere, I felt the exact same way, man. I was like
Yeah.
almost a little bit annoyed because they specifically did say on the update blog that like I'm pretty sure the exact quote was like a couple of weeks. And then it
Yeah.
was like, oh, suddenly it's getting hot fixed in like tomorrow. And I wasn't ready. Like the only boss I had killed was a few Leviathan. I don't think I had touched the other bosses. So I felt like super unprepared, and I remember like tagging Arcane, like, dude, you guys said a few weeks, like not cool, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, like, I don't think I could have done much better, and I think that was actually a huge gap between Sync and me, for like completion times. I don't remember what it was, but I mean. I mean, realistically, like you said, anyone could have been first, right? But like at this point, I think me saying I could have done any better is just like a woulda, coulda, shoulda kind of thing. Where the only way I would have gotten faster, I think, is if I had just had a better approach and been playing better.
Yeah, fair enough. I think like just on the day, it's like just gotta do with whatever you have and send it, and good luck.
Yeah, I think I regret like just like sending, like just dying, go back, dying, go back. Like I feel like I should have uh reflected a bit more on each attempt and also looked at what other people were doing
I
a
had a
bit
similar
more.
experience. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
I felt
getting
the
hard
same
stuck.
way.
I was hard stuck Leviathan. I was there like nice and early, felt fine, and then it was getting in my head as well. It was
Yeah.
like each run I was like, I'm doing better, I'm doing better. I did this wrong, I gotta fix this thing. And the reality was just like, dude, just play and just maybe take a step back, take 10 minutes out and chill.
I think most of us brute forced that day.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. Poor Kirby,
Taking a
man.
break is underrated, man. That's the strat. Just like take a
True.
10-minute break and like think about what's actually going
Yeah.
on. I'm not gonna lie, the Duke that I did was so bad. I didn't even know that it was 4 ticking on Enrage. So I have no clue how I got
That's
that
bad.
KC. That was a mess.
Yeah, for me, like with Leviathan, I was trying to look at the orbs instead of listen to them. And like the one KC I listened to them, I get it. And I was just like, holy shit, dude! Why am I so stupid? To this day, it'll probably stick with me forever if I'm thinking about it. Like, why didn't I just
Kinda
listen to the orbs? It was so easy.
I'm kind of sorry, I was interrupting
No,
there.
it's the-
I was gonna say I'm kind of surprised you listened to them because I think I look
really?
at them.
Huh? What do you
And
mean?
I think Noobtype plays with no sounds, right? He's definitely not listening.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure I
For the
just
most
look at them.
for the most part, I turned it off, then I turned it on for like a few kills
Gotcha.
during that day.
It's
See,
so fun.
I want to. It's so weird because I'm used to hearing in-game sounds in RuneScape.
Yeah, that's so funny. Like the different style approaches and things. Because I was kicking myself for it, and then you guys just have like no problem like looking at it. I think I get like
Yeah, that's
nowadays I could do
interesting.
it. Nowadays like I could do it just fine, but a bit of practice was needed to get there. But like in the moment, I was just like, oh, I'm just listening. It's fine. Didn't take a single hit on my actual run. So silly. Ah, such regret. Nothing I can do now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can only look back and
Yeah.
like
It's
you
it's
can
a
you can say, oh, I should have done this, should have done that, but like at the
it's
end of
coulda
the day,
woulda. It's coulda woulda
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
It's a good lesson though, because like I always say like game sounds are so important, and then of course don't take the advice that I say. But it's a really interesting lesson to like take forwards. I think. Just in general, like there are different approaches, and sometimes you don't have the right one. So for
Yeah.
Colosseum, if I'm struggling, just like take a second, take the 10-minute break, and then reassess. Like what are there even other options? Because usually, yeah, there are.
That's exactly what I took from my experience with Awaken as well. Was like, okay, the next time there's a release and like this kind of thing happens, like just remember that you don't have to like be stubborn with the method you're doing and
Yeah.
like just keep sending it back and brute forcing it. Like you can. It's probably like I know like because there's also like the rush, right? Like you want to finish it early, so you're kind of refusing to like adapt your method or
Yeah,
whatever
because
and
it
take the time
might
to
take longer.
right,
Yeah.
right. But I think it is actually worth it to just take the time and reflect a bit.
Hmm. Yeah, totally.
When I was streaming it, like when I got to Leviathan, people were like going crazy. And in my own chat, I'm like, wait, what?
You didn't realize
So
you were that
that
far
added,
ahead, and like
yeah. Then
yeah.
that added like a bunch of pressure onto me.
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't seen much or felt much pressure until that point, but when it hit the last boss, it was like, oh god, here we go. Not to mention the constant like chatter, like there was people like saying like, ah, Sync's done it, even though he's like nowhere near, like all throughout the day. And then there were people who were just like, dude, he's like 10 HP away, he's 20 HP away, like constantly. It's crazy pressure. It's super fun, but crazy pressure.
Honestly, I kind of like now that you say that, I'm getting memories of like a GIM release when my friends and I were trying to rush an Infernal Cape, and we wanted to beat your group, Exact's group, even though
Yeah.
I mean you guys are playing on hardcore, it's not even the same thing. But like, I remember like feeling that pressure like from my own group because I was like, oh, Exact's in a run, oh,
Yeah.
Exac's in Zug. I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
don't tell me that. Like,
Again, I can only imagine the pressure he was actually under during them. Like
oh yeah,
he's
man.
never been one to say like, dude, I'm feeling pressured or anxious or something. Not like in that sense, but he actually said it like one of those days, like, you guys got to give me a break, man. I can't take this. Just
Yeah.
let me get some sleep and I'll figure about it. Oh boy. Righty, let's move on to the very last question out of this section, which is, what are you guys' thoughts and ideas about the P2 Warden damage calc being used elsewhere? So this is another one of my agenda things, but in discussion it's interesting. So the P2 Warden formula, for those interested, is basically saying that unlike conventional attacks, where you pass an accuracy roll and then roll 0 to your max hit, at P2 Wardens, it uses a formula akin to other MMOs, where it's doing more of an average hit. The method for doing it at Wardens is taking your accuracy bonus for your weaponry, and that applies a minimum hit that you will never go below. And then you roll your regular damage hit, still an RNG roll, from 0 to your max hit, but you don't roll the total thing, you roll like maybe a quarter of that, and then add that on top. So it means that your gear that you're wearing matters a lot more, and your accuracy contributes to your bonus damage, a minimum threshold. So there's still RNG involved, but it's like a very RuneScape take on a classical MMO formula for average damage. That's the whole idea. And the question is, do you guys think this is interesting? And would it be useful elsewhere? Any takers?
I'll take. I mean, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? Like we're seeing that being used at Leviathan and Rage, which I think is a good use of it. just to ensure that you don't get completely screwed by RNG. I think it makes sense in like the context of a DPS check, even though Leviathan Enrage maybe isn't that much of a DPS check because technically like you can just do multiple laps, right? But it's like like most people don't want to do more than one lap, and I think the intention there isn't to make you do more than one lap, so it makes sense to kind of rubber band the like amount of damage that you're gonna do and make it more consistent so that no like one attempt is gonna be completely fucked or no one attempt is gonna be extremely lucky. Now I'm a fan of it in that sense for sure.
You think?
It's like taking a page from Leviathan and Enrage. I do think like um so you have to stay near the Abyssal Pathfinder in order for you to roll those hits. So having to do something to guarantee you do those hits, I think that should be uh I think they should have something like that if they were to implement something like this.
Yeah, I've never really thought of it being applied like from like a necessary thing you do, but it makes a lot of sense.
That's true. I didn't even consider it. That's a good point that you do have to actually stick with the thing to get it.
And better still, it's forcing movement, the best mechanic. So yeah, it's actually a really like that particular. I mean, that particular part of Leviathan Enrage is so much fun. Like I don't know, it's extremely well crafted. It just feels fun. I don't know. Like obviously you guys know you've done so much of it, but yeah, I think that sorry, go on.
For me, it mainly has to do with like just like knowing that you got through like uh a very punishing what do you call it, phase of the fight. Because like one single fuck up can cost you like so much in that part.
Yeah, it's just impossible to recover really. So, I mean, well, particularly it kind of like it forces you to play well, more or less perfect, I guess. Really, there's no room for error, which is nice.
Mhm.
Not many places in the game do that. I think primarily it's useful against so we're talking about DPS checks, but like TOA introduced several, the Mage Scarab, the Akka Shadows, really applying it to those positions to enable DPS checks to be consistent. To me, makes sense. I think that players shouldn't be punished for trying to do higher invocations without the necessary gear. If on average they would kill it, So I think there's a place for it in future content. I'm glad they are using it for Awakened Leviathan, but particularly non-RNG DPS checks is important in particular.
Yes, I mean speaking of the Mage Scarab, I think they did actually change something about it, right? I could be wrong, but I
Oh
swear
yeah,
like
they did.
on release
Is
it
it?
was like way worse. I think
Perhaps.
now
The
it's like a certain number of hits or something, and it's like
Yeah,
much more likely to jump or something,
it's
right?
the
hit it's
mechanic
hit
level
based. Yeah.
was tied to its charge rate, I believe. So like level
Oh,
2 would be
interesting.
like the fastest.
I see.
Oh. Yeah, you can definitely like blowpipe it down and like make it jump, but it doesn't feel quite as good as just like dealing damage, I guess. Interestingly, players would rather just like take the hit than to pipe it, I think. You just like don't care too much. It's like I just, I deal damage otherwise, I get unlucky and it doesn't jump too bad, doesn't matter. But yeah.
Speaking of the whole DPS check thing though, I do think it's important to like make a clear distinction of like what is it like a DPS check that deserves that kind of thing versus one that isn't. Cause like I don't you said the Aqua Shadows, right? But like I feel like that one's like not so bad because there is a way to like yeah, you can fail the DPS check, but you can also like recover from it, right? And like there's also Zuck where like depending on how people are doing the fight for like let's say in the context of like their first cape, you can consider the fight to be a DPS check just because maybe like another set spawning is completely like fatal for your run, right? Like it's a disaster. Like if another set
Mm-hmm.
spawns, it's over, either because of your shield eyes or because you can't flick the set, right? Because or yeah. Anyways, my point is like those things are all what is it? Like those issues are all like playable around, right? Like you can tag the sets better so your shield takes less damage, or you can learn how to flick the sets. So it's like I
Yeah.
think like in the context of like a Zuck fight, it wouldn't make like sense, right? Even though like some players could, in certain contexts, consider it a DPS check.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think this like idea of guaranteed accuracy hits, or just the P2 formula itself makes for better gameplay? Like, let's say you applied that particular mechanic to everything at Zuck onwards, like when it spawns. Would that be interesting, or like would it be good or bad, or?
I honestly, personally, I think it would make the Zuck fight boring, because like I feel like a lot of your I'm talking about the context of like your first tape, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of the fight is like like hitting a zero kind of adds to the experience, right? Like hitting a zero when you have to, let's say, proc the healers is like a huge deal, and it's like if you miss that, then like suddenly you're starting to think like, okay, I now have like 40 ticks less until the set spawns relative to when my healers spawn, right? But if you have guaranteed damage, it's like before you even reach that side of the what is it? The arena, the corner spots. You already know that you're going to proc healers on that side no matter what, because of that like guaranteed accuracy kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Which I think makes it like, it reduces like the stress, it reduces like I don't know, all of those things, right? Like all of those emotions that are present in your first Zuck fight is like,
Maybe
it becomes kind of lame, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe a good way to sum it up is that it's removing the reactiveness of your personal damage RNG.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, as it's a consistency thing. If you're consistent, there's less likely to noodle, which means less choice and less impact if it happens. And that impact is
Yeah.
what drives the fight. It's what makes you choose between doing certain things, like, do I kill this ranger or do I leave it alive? Do I, how you go about stuff. So yeah,
100%. Yeah.
very unique to the RuneScape combat system though. But that's also why it's very quirky, partially. Ooh. Right. Any last thoughts on any of the topics so far before we move on to some of the personal questions? Semi-personal.
I have nothing.
I don't think I have anything either.
Awesome. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to alternate the questions. I'm going to put them all in chat together. But we'll go up. Well, it's a bit non-distinct. Let me put a space in there. There we go. Okay, so question 1 for Noobtype. So Port's been known to run Inferno and Fight Caves speedruns, alongside a variety of other challenges and whatnot. But personally, I haven't seen many sort of classical RuneScape speedruns from you. So, do you do any? Are you interested? If yes, yes. If no, why no? Like, why not sort of like regular speedies?
So the only speeds I've ever really got really invested to were CM5s with Sido.
Yeah.
He was learning at the time, and then I was introduced to his group during his trial and error stage, and we both learned how to speed through CM5s. So that was the only actual speed I've done. Uh, but I do eventually want to venture out to other speedrunning contents. But right now it's I want to focus on other things first. So what do you call it? I still want to do Soul Harmatab.
Mm-hmm.
Still want to get what do you call it? I still want to do more super challenges.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so do all the really interesting niche and all the interesting niche stuff, and try and get the crazy big challenges out of the way, and then go for the consistent improve over time speedies sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. It's in my bucket list, so eventually I do want to get into that.
Yeah, sick. I have to ask, any interested in Inferno speeds?
For speeds?
Inferno.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I've been recommended by a lot of people.
I bet. Yeah.
When are you gonna do Inferno speeds? When are you gonna do Inferno speeds? I'm like, I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, just it's coming. Just be patient, people. Yep. What about the likes of No Pillar? Have you done one?
No pillar? Oh,
It's very fun.
never even thought of that. I'll probably try
Honestly,
that before getting to speeds.
you would breeze through it. It's nowhere near as hard as people make it out to be. The speed running
Oh,
of No Pillar is very interesting.
Okay, that's
But even less people interested in that. But yeah, I don't know. It's just more challenges, isn't it? Like, takes your
yeah.
fancy, go for it.
I'll consider it.
Yeah, that's very cool to hear. Right, for Port, has there been any challenge you personally wanted to complete that you just failed, could not do? Or perhaps like a particular mechanic or piece of content that you struggled greatly with in comparison to a lot of the stuff you normally do? Maybe that's a bit loaded, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So when I saw this question, I was thinking about it, and it was like, wow, there's actually like quite a few answers to this. Because,
Mhm.
well, first there's like the type of thing where there's things I've tried that I failed that I'm not sure I would say have bested me because I still haven't given up on them, and I still want to get back to them and try them. So I'm not gonna say exactly what I'm thinking of in that sense, but there are definitely, or there have been definitely many times where I've like thought in that moment like, okay, I actually just can't do this. I think for me like a big one that stands out was when I was doing level 3 fight caves. I had like a run that got to, I can't remember, it was like way 60 or 61, and I died because I messed up because of a long tick. And after that, I made a new account. I went back in, and I died when recoiling one of the meleeers again
Oh,
because I got a long tick. And it
that's
was like,
super frustrating.
it was a long tick, like because that like the method to do that is like 100 tick cycle, right? And that long tick happened on the exact tick that like mattered. So like after that, like my mental was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And I think after that, I kind of stopped doing it for like 6 months or something, just procrastinating it constantly and more or less almost gave up on it. So, and that would be a big one. Outside of PVM, there's like stuff too, because like in my friend group, I'm now like famous for this. Like on when I was talking to Sido, I said, next year, being this year, I wanted to get into Barbarian Assault. And
Uh-huh.
No.
I haven't at all. Like I have not done a single wave of Barb Assault. So it's like I just like really didn't stick to true to my goals there. Another one was I wanted to try like improve my Granite 6 hour, and I wanted to try get like a really good one. And I tried for like 20 minutes, and like
Just the 20.
I was like the server doesn't feel good, and I
Oh
logged
god.
out, and I haven't tried again since. So it's
That's
like,
that's star miners, man. Nothing you could have done.
dude, I'm now a
Yeah, we
star
put
mining
one in.
enthusiast, by the way. I've gained 4 mil mining XP on my all
Oh
doing star
man.
mining. Um, yeah, I mean, there's like I don't know. There's so many things I feel like that I try and fail and maybe give up on. So
I
yeah, the
feel
answer
like
to that question is yes, for sure.
Mhm. I feel like there's of all the variety that RuneScape challenges present, most of them, when you map them out and you set a reasonable goal, are like totally doable. And then it's more about like, do you have the mental to continue when some shit goes horribly wrong? It's not as if like players are incapable. It's just like are you willing to stick to the grind kind of thing? Um,
Yeah,
especially for speedruns where like you're basically like re-rolling the numbers and you got to play consistent and play for RNG, and it's like you can get it. You just have to put in the time and the effort. And sometimes it's like maybe that you fall out of it a bit. You don't really fancy it anymore.
100%. No,
Hmm.
I agree. Like a lot of accomplishing anything on this game is like really about who has the mental fortitude to stick with it and keep going, right? And I
Yeah,
think for me personally, I would love if I had better discipline to stick to my goals and like a better mentality about like you know, improving or doing whatever I'm trying to do. Like I wish I put more time and effort into it, I guess. This I gotta give a huge shout out to Afzal because he has to be like the king of being dedicated to his goal. Because like when he was doing 39 and he's trying to do lower right now, he's been like through the most absurd like bullshit deaths ever, right? But
Yeah.
he keeps on making a new account and he keeps going back in. And especially now the accounts he has to make are ridiculous because he has to get high attack with no HP, which is completely annoying to do, right? And he has to do that every time he dies, and every single time he dies,
What?
he's going back and he's doing it. So
Yeah, it's a massive
I lose
grind.
my mind. I think
You know how long like he's saying the accounts take to prep?
honestly, I think he's told me, but I do not remember. But it is a good amount of time for
Well,
sure.
I want to say exact accounts when he was doing 40 combat. He said 10 hours per account.
Oh yeah, it's way
So,
more than 10 hours
yeah.
for sure.
The lower the combat, the higher the prep. But
And
10 hours for account is still crazy time investment.
for sure. And I said Afzal there, but I'm sure that Exact has been through very similar with his Inferno stuff as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, I've just seen more of Afzal behind the scenes because he sometimes tells me about the deaths he has and stuff. So
Yeah, some again like the long tick or the short tick, whatever it is, it's like
yeah,
it's out
long
of
tick,
out of
power
your control.
blackout, or like
Oh god.
absurd like RNG combinations. Like I think recently he had a situation where he took a mage hit or something off prey and it hit a 0 and then he got like hit by something else. But because the mage hit a 0, he like couldn't tick eat or something because he already tried to tick eat the mage hit.
Yep.
So his health was like full, but then he got one shot or something because he couldn't tick eat because the first attack hit a 0. So it's like a ridiculously like low chance of like dying for his mistake, but it just happened, right? It's like, oh my god, I can't imagine
No,
running it back after that kind of thing, you know?
and presumably he took the right course of action, so it makes it even worse because it's like out of your
Right,
hands.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some fun stuff. Okay, next 2 questions. Last 2 for each of you. Let me type this one up. I'll put it in chat.
Oh.
So for Noobtype, you play full screen, yes? Just to check.
Yeah.
Okay, so you play full screen and you have a unique prayer configuration. Most players don't reorder their prayer. Question 1 is: do you think full screen players suffer in comparison to resizable players, like smaller client players, particularly when learning to PVM? Because I think that once you get good enough or you play long enough, you can become good on whatever. No, it doesn't really matter what you play on, unless you're like a 20,000 inch flat screen or like bent screen monitor or whatever. So the question is it like, as a learner, would you ever advise people to like make their clients smaller to get good at PVM? We'll get to the next bit in a second, but what do you think?
If people just want strictly to get better at the game, I'd say like resizable / fixed is the way to go. Because if you
Yeah.
play full screen, and if you're not like used to like everything yet, there's a good chance people would tunnel vision onto the boss and not realize like what you're supposed to do. And then yeah, so I think if you're not used to playing if you're not used to playing full screen, and if you don't have like good peripheral vision, I'd say like full screen would be a disadvantage for you.
Mm-hmm. Have you
Especially if
considered
you're learning?
Yeah, have you considered switching at all, or are you just like, I'm okay with it, I can do everything, so it doesn't matter?
I'm okay with it because at the same time when I play, I do like kind of appreciate the environment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something like so many players like forego in favor of like slightly better gameplay. It's like sometimes the game world is just nice. Sometimes seeing more is just nice. I had another question, I forgot. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so next part to this was the prayer reordering. What's up with that?
Oh, a lot of people hate me for this, but so there's 2 reasons behind it. So I never liked how overheads and offensive prayers weren't lined up to each other,
Mhm.
and how they also had a one tile gap between each other.
Yeah.
I always thought that was weird. And the second reason is, um, eventually when get really more proficient at the game, I do want to start augury flicking for the mage defense. So that's why I have That's why I also reordered augury as well to be close to all of the prayers, offensive prayers and overheads.
That's a cool second reason. I like that. Yeah, definitely underrated ideas.
Honestly, watching him play, I'm very sold on like the having the overheads and offensives right next to each other. It looks really nice. And honestly, I really want to do it myself. I'm just very stubborn about like changing my habits. I need to find some like point in time where I feel like I am willing to like adjust all my muscle memory for that because it looks
It's
very good.
it's definitely a hard habit to break. It took me like over almost 3 weeks to get used to.
Oh, that's a lot of
Right.
time.
Yeah,
Right. It's like, oh, when am I gonna have 3 weeks where I don't wanna like do anything that would like be negatively impacted by that
Yeah.
change. And it's like, oh, but that's never gonna happen. It's like
Yeah, just die
I gotta
every
suck
day.
it up and do it at some point. Because I mean it does look really
I'm sure on,
worthwhile.
like, in theory, or even on paper, like in practice, it is better once you do it. It's just about changing to it. It's the hard part.
and like
Yeah.
most of us are adapted to like the normal reordering too.
Yeah.
So
Do you ever have moments where you just do the wrong thing, or is it like set in stone nowadays?
nowadays it's set in stone.
That's pretty cool. So like there is a point where it just becomes second nature and it's fine.
Mhm.
Okay, that's reassuring. That makes me interested in trying and doing it someday. I think the
Yeah,
one thing for
sorry, go on.
yeah, the one thing for me that would make me do it is if I could delete all the other prayers I don't want and put a duplicate set like top left of my inventory, so it's like close to where I want it to be, and I could practice on that without like compromising my base muscle memory. Would be really interesting. So if they ever do duplicate prayers, I just instantaneously go for it. But yeah, probably some anti-Jagex rule thing there.
I was thinking about that in the shower earlier. Like, oh, it would be pretty cool if you could have duplicate prayers as well.
Mm.
Because recently I was trying to move my prayers to the top left for something, and I thought like, huh, it would be kind of cool if I could have them like top left for some situations and like normal spot for others.
Yeah, I don't think it's game breaking. I don't think it would like be bad or anything. It's just a case of it's not the functionality is not there, and maybe it's against rules. But
What I
yeah,
was gonna say is like the scary thought is like, what if you make the switch for something like that and you start getting used to it, but you never get like quite like properly used to it, so you are like still like having like mess ups and but
hmm
like you can also never switch back. Like if you switch back, that muscle memory is also gone. So it's like,
yeah.
oh no, like you're just doomed.
Wait,
That thought
hmm.
scares me when it
You know
comes
how
to
like you can always put prayers on quick prayer and then have them in your inventory, and to me that's fine. I use them interchangeably. So I think if you used it for long enough, you would eventually find a middle ground where you would like use them as as intended as you want them to. It just takes like 3 weeks or something again. Righty. So the last question that I have listed before we move on to anything excess is question 2 for Port. So this is you've created or participated in a lot of fun ideas and challenges, some of which are not PVM based. For example, the pathing stuff. So what makes them so interesting? And is there anything particular that comes to mind that remains interesting still in this particular realm of challenges? You can talk a little bit about like various ones, an example, or anything that comes to mind.
So I guess like the most like visible examples for people would be stuff like GE challenges, X click challenges, where he gives you an objective to complete in as little clicks as possible. And to do those, you often need to learn like a lot about different pathing mechanics and some other stuff like learning how the fire making scripts work is very helpful as well because once you like understand that kind of thing, you can sort of manipulate the direction you can go with fire making. Like normally you'll get pushed west, but you can manipulate it so that you go in any direction. Um, those are interesting to me. Honestly, I don't know why. Maybe it's probably just like being over interested in RuneScape in general, right? Like I said, I don't really play other games. I don't have many other hobbies, so I guess I've always been a little bit too fixated on this game, and I don't know. It's always been like slightly interesting to me, I guess. And then joining Summit and talking to other people who are very good at the game and very smart at the game got me more interested in it, I guess. Where was I going with this? Yeah, I think like like I say they're interesting, right? But I think most people probably don't find them interesting because they don't have as clearly direct impacts on aspects of the game that are actually useful or like important, right? So
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure, the things I talked about just then were good for that very specific challenge that one player is putting out, but it's not maybe not useful in other aspects of the game. But I mean, I do think that there are actually like what is it called, implications of like those kinds of mechanics that are interesting outside of just that kind of thing, right? Like there are ways to apply that knowledge in ways that are useful. And I think one of them would be the most obvious one would probably be something like quest speedrunning, which is like also again, people aren't interested in quest speedrunning, unfortunately. But I think there's a lot of cool like tech that gets showed off in those that maybe people don't really realize. Like for example, like the what we call like a deep X click, which basically in effect makes your character move but without moving. So like the effect of that is like you can do things like reset blocking on your character every tick. So maybe if someone runs over you and you're trying to trap an NPC, you can like use that to automatically reblock the tile that you're standing on. Just as an example, right? And I think GE Challenge used that for one of his quest speed runs. There's other interesting stuff too, like utilizing stuns to sometimes save a tick when doing certain activities, you know, that might extend outside of just quest speedrunning. Like, I don't know, maybe I haven't looked at it, but maybe you can like save a tick at the Zebak puzzle when you're trying to pick up the water container thing. Because like you can stun yourself like next to the water container and pick it up from a tile away. And in some scenarios, that can save you a tick. Just,
That's
just
really
as an
cool.
example, right?
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot of potential there for these kinds of mechanics that are super unexplored, and maybe people would probably be more interested in if people started to apply them more outside. B5 is another player who's really good at this kind of thing. I remember him showing me something where you stun yourself with like Diango's claws so you can fire make from a tile away, and he was doing some really cool
Cool.
fireball pattern with that. That was super cool. Um, Also, like the thing I was talking about with directional fire making, like I remember trying to use that for. There's like this thing after Eagle's Peak where you unlock all the transportation systems, like in the jungle and in the desert, and in the like ice place. And for like the desert one, there's this boulder that's in the way, and you have to like push the boulder to unlock this route, like for your account, and you need like 45 strength for that. But like it turns out you can fire make through the boulder and like put like just like skip that in theory, but nobody has done it because like nobody has found a way to actually pull it off. Because the issue with the boulder is it's a 2x2, and you can fire make north like like using what I described about like understanding how to manipulate the direction. But that mechanic of like manipulating the direction only works once. So you can go north and then you're inside the boulder, which is a 2x2, but it's impossible for you to go north again because of the fact that you're inside the boulder. So it's like there's like some theoretical way like in the game for that kind of thing to work, but nobody has found a way to actually apply it. Like and like that could be like a cool thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I got Ego's Peak unlocked on my one strength account or whatever. Super niche, right? But like that's the kind of thing that people are like, oh, what? That's so cool. Like,
But like,
uh,
yeah, the amount of players that play the game, someone out there is interested in it, and it's like all these little things. It's almost like knowledge for the sake of knowledge. But the beauty of RuneScape is that they can just be applied in places that you would least expect. And sometimes the impact's nothing. Sometimes the impact's a tick save at Zabak. But you know,
yeah.
they
I
apply
mean,
throughout the game, which is so cool.
I would even say like as an extension of that interest in those kinds of challenges, I feel like that has taught me a lot of stuff that has actually been useful. Like, for example, the recent thing now is like the Ring of Stone stuff at Arachnis. I mean, like a bunch of us were doing that like 2-3 years ago, right? Because we already like knew and understood what was going on with it.
Yeah.
And so that was like super useful. And now that's like a super popular method, right?
Yeah, only in the last 3-4 months maybe has it been like popularized. And again,
Mhm.
like known about for years, done for years. I know some people were doing it in a league. So
Oh yeah, yeah. T-Tal said he was farming hella points at Sarachnis with it.
yeah, outing Titans.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
ban T-Tals.
yeah, quickly. But
Um,
I think that's probably one of the most profound examples of knowledge like that becoming useful.
right, right.
Yeah.
There is one other thing with the deep clicks I was talking about that 929 showed me, but I can't really like it's his like thing, so I won't repeat it. But I
Yeah.
think that would be it's like tech that you can use for PVM that would actually be insanely hard to pull off and also insanely cool, like the result of it. So if someone managed to actually utilize it, that would be very interesting, I think.
We'll see it. We'll see it one day. No leaking yet, but
Maybe, yeah.
it'd be really awesome to see a showcase or just even like a couple of clips and a few seconds of something like that. But yeah. Right, we are done with the question list. So, any final thoughts on just anything really so far?
I had fun.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is like I think this is the first podcast I've like properly done with people, and I've been on the Sebe a few times, but yeah, this is just like really cool. So, any final words or any shout outs, anythings from any of you guys to anyone or anything? Final thoughts.
Shout out Noobtype.
Shut up, 14. Nice.
Oh, let's go.
Oh, yeah, well, I guess I'll shout out me then because I got no one left. But yeah,
No real thoughts, but thanks for inviting us. And do you think you would do another one of these as like a recurring thing?
I really
Is that
like
the
it.
plan?
I really like the whole idea of it. I would love to find almost like a co-host sort of thing, and
Right.
have I don't I think 3 people is a great format, but I think 4 might be even better. I don't know if like a host and a co-host plus a guest would be good, but I don't know. It's the kind of thing you'd have to have some good synergy with, or have like really, I guess, common discussions to be able to like know the flow if you're doing that sort of thing too. Because like anyone watching this will know, I probably edited out like a small bit here and there, or like stitched a tiny bit together to like clear a gap or something. And that kind of thing I can think can be filled up with someone else who's like on point and like knows when to chirp in. But that's just pretty normal for, not knowing who to speak and whatnot. But also just maybe do more of them. So, yeah. If you guys enjoyed this thing, leave it in the comments. You can ask questions and I don't know. Maybe these guys will answer, maybe I'll answer, or maybe you won't get one because that's how it works. But yeah, ton of fun. So thank you guys. Yeah. That's it. Get out of here. We're done. Goodbye, YouTube. See ya.